Rising. Up the seam for Keithy in stride. He's got him out to midfield. Terrific throw from Cam Rising.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
Third down 10. Nice job.
Nice work. Scatterboo. Scatters in. Touchdown. Arizona State.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Fafita, deep drop, deep throw to midfield, and wide adjusted by McMillan. All that in like a punt returner. It's a gain of 42.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Sanders underneath complete. In space.
Nice move.
Hunter, Travis Hunter. T12.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
Fourth down, Preston Stone pressured. Gets rid of it to a wide open R.J. Maryland. Still on his feet. Maryland to the house. Touchdown.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
Another handoff, sweeping left. There goes Ott for a huge crease. Midfield for the freshman. Steps through a tackle. He'll take it the distance. On the second snap of the game, 73 to the house.
Now here's David Smoke, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoke.
You know, it was just, 2-3 weeks ago or so when we all unveiled who we voted for the preseason Big 12 football rankings. The media has spoken. I think it's like 41 or 51, how many different votes. We're going to tell you how it came out. We'll look at that, digest it a little bit. And I think it's safe to say that most of us were pretty much in that same, the way it turned out. But we'll get to that in a minute because earlier, overnight, Ollie Gordon, Oklahoma State Heisman Trophy candidate, record-breaking running back, coming back for Oklahoma State. This is the story that came down late yesterday. Actually, Chris Williams used to work in the market, that he was stopped for a DUI. And I've had even some who watch this show text me about what should happen. How many games should he be suspended? And I don't know if that's because you want him to be suspended or what. What does Oklahoma State do here?
Well, I think this therein lies the problem with major college athletics and the way that they have to adjudicate punishment right now, and that, you know, if this is the NFL, you know, it'd go to the disciplinary council and they, you know, Roger Goodell would, you know, kind of dole things out because he's the commissioner. They need a commissioner so that way, you know, that you can take yourself out of it because, you know, there's been many situations. Heck, we just talked about the time I screwed Josh Gordon and Willie Jefferson out of a half by telling, Ken Starr about what their punishment was. So coaches all do these in different ways. And they're, you know, all these things are kind of like snowflakes. No two are exactly the same. But I mean, I think he probably deserves some sort of suspension. I mean, just like Trevor Etienne at Georgia probably deserves a suspension for getting a DUI.
Will this be a suspension, or do you think a bunch of gassers?
And that's the thing. That's why I think this needs to be taken kind of out of the school's hands, because that way too often, if you leave it up to, tell DuPont to not dump chemicals in the water, but then put them in charge of not dumping chemicals in the water, what are they going to do? Yeah. They'll just do it a little bit less.
Craig?
Take it out of their hands in what way?
Like commissioner, have the commissioner dole out punishments and things like that.
Wait a minute, the commissioner, your mark?
No, that's why I say we need a commissioner. That's why I think you need to take it out of school's hands. I understand that's not the reality of the situation, but if you want fair punishment across the board, you can't leave it up to each individual school. Some of them will go way beyond the pale for it because they're worried about what people will say, and then others will be like, well, what are you going to do to me? Yeah. A half.
Kyle Visser, and Craig, you respond, he should not be suspended. That's why we have a legal system, Gundy, can implement in-house punishment that is no one's business.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how they should handle it, really. I don't have a super strong opinion on that. I do think he deserves a punishment of some sort. I also know that coaches don't always take this very seriously, and we only take it seriously and really get serious about it when something horrific happens. So it's like, oh, well, nothing bad happened, so let's not worry about it too much. Glad everybody's safe. Hopefully it's not as bad as it looks, and I guess they're going to continue to investigate. It was suspicion of DUI and a couple of other things. So, they'll have their lawyers or Ollie's lawyers or whoever will look into that and get down to the bottom of it and go through that process. But, yeah, I don't have like some Stephen A. Smith hot take of, he should be suspended for the rest of the year, anything crazy like that. I don't know enough of the details, and not going to just consider him full-blown guilty based on what I have read so far. Doesn't look good. It's not a good look for Ollie Gordon. Let's start there. It's a bad look for him. It's not a great way to start to turn the corner into the regular season of, being the reigning Doak Walker Award winner and having some Heisman love, as you mentioned, and here he is getting popped for suspicion of DUI. So hopefully this wakes him up a little bit, that he's not in a position where he needs to be making mistakes like that. And I know we see NFL players, hey, you've got a whole system designed to allow you to not drink and drive, and there's plenty of guys that do it anyways. And so I know that's just the mindset of people in general is like, no, I can drive, but hopefully Ollie Gordon does a little bit of a pause from now on, because he can ill afford now to have another thing, because then that becomes a chain of things. So it's a mistake. Luckily, no one was hurt. Oklahoma State will handle it however they choose to. I'm sure we will either notice he gets suspended for a half, which is probably what would end up happening against like Tulsa or something. I don't know the schedule off the top of my head. And then, I'm sure he'll run a bunch of gassers, and we'll hear that. That's typically what these things are, a half suspension, behind-the-scenes stuff, whatever that may entail. But, yeah, my biggest takeaway is that's a mistake. We'll learn more about it, and, he'll be punished however he's punished, but I hope we just don't hear anything like this again from him for a very long time, if ever.
They open up with South Dakota State is their opening game. You think you'll be at Big 12 Media Days next week?
No.
Okay, I get why you think that way, or that would be the answer, but wouldn't it also be good for him to also...
Yeah, but do colleges think that? No, not a one of them.
Wouldn't you like to... Wouldn't that be...
Look, every single school, every single one is afraid of that. All of them. 100% of schools are afraid of having the person sit up in front of the microphone and take responsibility.
Craig?
Especially in a setting like that where he'd have to do it 70 times.
And 99% of them, you're right, that he's probably not going to be there.
Well, finish your thought. You would like what?
No, I just think it would be different.
It would be
to show some
ballsy,
accountability, but his attorney may not let him talk.
Yeah.
And I don't think we're there to talk to him about his DUI
well, if
suspicion.
he's there, he has to.
Right, so I don't think that's why we care to talk to him. We're not the judge and jury here. We're reading a headline about what he got popped for. The cops and Ollie Gordon's legal representation will figure out the actual legal stuff, and that's up for them to figure all out. But we're just reading a report, so yeah, I don't have any I had plenty of interest in talking to Ollie Gordon prior to this. I have no interest in talking to him because he got a DUI. So I would think it'd probably be wiser for them to not have him there, just to avoid everybody bringing this up, because you obviously have to bring it up because it just happened like days prior to him getting there. So maybe to get around that and to not just dwell on it, you don't have him there. That is not great, though, because that's obviously your best player and one of the faces of the league. So I understand where you're coming from, but, it's not really the media's job to provide the accountability for Ollie Gordon.
No.
So
if he's there, he would have questions. He doesn't have to answer many of them. It might help just kind of clear that. But he's probably not going to be there. I wonder if, in fact, he has another great year. Will someone with a Heisman vote use that against him?
Do they use it against all the Georgia guys? Do they use it against the other players around college football?
I think some used it against Caleb Williams because his fingernails were painted.
Okay, well, if they're going to do that, then I'm sure there'll be some guy somewhere, some girl somewhere that has a Heisman vote that I guess if they just really want to stick it to Ollie Gordon, they'll take away the vote they would have given him otherwise. I don't know. I think that's an on-the-field award. And I understand that there's off-the-field perceptions that matter to some extent as well, but I don't think the Heisman Trust is also the holier-than-thou group that needs to be determining, those types of things either necessarily. Their voting body for that matter. So yeah, I'm sure somewhere, but I don't think that there would be enough of a revolt of. Ollie Gordon had a suspicion of DUI prior to the season. He was clearly the best player in the world this year, but we're going to hold that against him and stick it to him. If somebody wants to be like that, then
there's hundreds of voters, and so I'm sure somebody will.
I think that's also part of the reason that the Heisman Committee has so many voters, so that you can maybe weed out this guy's got fingernails and this guy had made a mistake.
Well, I hope he has fingernails. But
this guy
there are some that won't vote outside of their region.
Yeah, won't vote outside of their region.
Or they hate Notre Dame.
Yeah. I don't like the way this guy is on Twitter or things like that, which has nothing to do with the fact that he might be the best college football player in the country. Yeah. That's what you're voting on. You're not voting on the dude that you want to have a beer with the most. You're voting on the guy who's the best football player.
Let's put it this way. Ollie Gordon, go earn your way to New York, and then we can have the conversation about whether this hurts you. But you're not there yet, and nowhere close. Nobody is right now. So, go ahead and earn that, and then we can have that conversation. And not only go out and earn that, but keep your nose clean that entire time until then, and show some, remorse or, what I mean, something along those lines, or just go keep your head down and work and clear this all up and go about your way. And then we'll, revisit that in December when the actual votes start to roll in. But beyond that, I don't think there's, I know we have fun with Georgia and theirs was I don't want to see, this is the whole thing. You go down, I don't want to start comparing DUI cases.
Some people have in the chat room.
I know, but for example, Georgia, a person died. And so, I don't want to go down that road, but he made a mistake. He needs to own up to it. I'm sure he's already doing that. Oklahoma State will handle it. And I'm sure people have opinions on that because we will take notice of whether he's suspended or not. But I don't know enough to sit here and act like I'm God Almighty and I am determining what Ollie Gordon should feel like or anything. I
wonder how many people who are trying to give him a suspension or crucify him, they themselves have their own skeletons in their own closet. But doesn't mean he's not wrong, because he obviously made a terrible mistake.
Which is why I do think that most of these things shouldn't really be left up to the schools, because it's going to be different across the board.
But right now there's no choice.
There's no choice. I think that having a somewhat impartial third party look at these things, because then they'll have to be in charge of looking at the kid from Tech who'll get a DUI, or the kid from Baylor, or the kid from TC. This is the other thing that is silly about college football fandom. There are tons of fans from other schools who are like, they would never at our school. They have, they will.
I'm going to read this from Wet Blanket. We know he's an Oklahoma State fan, but here's what I don't like: when maybe a player from the program you like does something silly, stupid, and then you go, what about, Oklahoma had 3 players. Wet Blanket, it doesn't matter what Oklahoma's had. It's about Oklahoma State and how they handle Ollie Gordon, and I hope that they handle it well, and I hope he does too, and everybody can move on. Because we can do the but game with anything in life. Now, Big 12 preseason poll. Utah and Kansas State 1 and 2. The voting was really close. 20 first-place votes for Utah, 19 for K-State. Then there's Oklahoma State, KU, Arizona. You can see down the list. I think 1 through 9, maybe with a couple of little flips, is exactly the way I went. And then TCU, Colorado, Baylor, Brigham, all BYU. This is very close to, I think, how I went. That's the vote. And 65% of had either Utah 1 or K-State 1 or 2, one or the other. But this, to me, when I saw this, I didn't go, oh, my God. I thought this all made sense.
Yeah, I had, I think, pretty much the same top 7, maybe some differences as far as the middle goes, but pretty much all the same grouping of teams. Same for the bottom. I had BYU, I think, lower by a spot or 2. And then, all the rest of it, though, looks about the same as what I had. I mean, maybe I had, West Virginia and Tech flipped, I think. But, I mean, that's very slight differences that when you get down to 7, 8, 9 are really not that great of differences. So, yeah, this aligns with, I know what my feelings are. And if they align with yours, then I think we're all pretty much in the same boat. I don't think there's anything truly shocking here. I do wonder, Arizona State, I sort of felt, because I think I had them at dead last because of their schedule. I wasn't looking at that. One thing I didn't realize, this is something I thought at the time, and then I didn't want to say it right afterwards because then it made it sound like I was like squirreling away from my own picks, but I looked at it for the entire season. I didn't look at just the Big 12 games. So when you're actually looking at the Big 12 records, those are going to be different than your season records. So mine was like based on full like 12-game schedule, but the 3 non-cons don't matter.
Yeah.
And so I probably need to readjust that, but I think it still comes out pretty much the same way. But it would flip perhaps like my 16th and 15th because the non-cons are different. You know what I mean? But that's pretty much what I had. I think everybody's vibing the same way. Arizona, we all feel like it's going to be pretty good. We're just not, most of us are ready to say, yeah, they're going to be like 1 or 2. They're better than Kansas State or Utah. Oklahoma State getting a bit more love here than they've, maybe gotten elsewhere, where they're more like 4, 5, 6. But yeah, I think that's a pretty solid list, and I think that's about where my mind's been as far as this league goes.
My top, like, if you broke it off into like sections of it,
yep.
I have the top 4 are the same teams in different order.
Okay.
So from 5 to 10 are the same teams in slightly different order. And honestly, between 6 and 10, they might all have the same record. I don't think people quite understand. In a 16-team league where not everybody plays each other, how many teams, it could be 5 to 12, have almost the same record.
Like 7, 5, 6, 6, 8, 4.
Yeah, it's all going to be right there. Like you could have 4 teams at 8 and 4 easily because they don't cross paths. And then from 11 down, mine is considerably bit more jumbled. I have Houston a lot higher because I trust Willie Fritz. I have Colorado a little lower, just because I got to see it. I have BYU lower. I have Cincinnati at the bottom. I guess I like Kenny Dillingham more than Scott Satterfield. I don't know. So,
well, Wet Blanket, again, Oklahoma State, was saying that all of you on 365 Sports lowballed Oklahoma State. Now, I got a question for you.
I had them at 3.
Hold on.
Where they are. Yeah.
I had them 4.
I had them 4.
What did you have them, Craig?
I just said I had them at 3.
Okay, so I don't know what lowballing would be when we have them about where exactly 50 or so other people had them end. Like there may be some that had them, in fact, some of them had ranked number 1. So it's just funny to watch the sensitivity when the low ball, when we had them right where they ended up, is exactly the evidence that I have in front of me with my ballot and the ballots that you guys have as well. Now, the Big 12 all first team football team. Offensive player and defensive players of the year are both from Colorado. Not a surprise. Shedeur Sanders, Travis Hunter, although you could insert other names there. Newcomer of the year is KJ Jefferson. I think we could just debate or you digest whatever those particular, what you call superlatives, and we could talk about that all day because the options are there. The newcomer, not quite as much.
I think where the difference in my offense on it, like I had some wide receivers that were different. My offensive line was a little bit different because even though I know they just put OL, I refuse. I'm a conscientious objector because I would like to create, if I'm going to create the all Big 12 team, I'm going to create one that can function. That when you go up against the all SEC team or the all Pac, or I'm sorry, that doesn't exist anymore, or the all Big 10 or all ACC team, if we were going to play that fictional matchup, that we would have a center and 2 guards and 2 tackles. Because, and I don't know why the Big 12 won't do this, because it's disrespectful to all the positions collectively. What if the Big 12 has a year where they don't have any good tackles? Or but they have, but you're going to, or don't have any good centers, but you have to still put a center there. It just, okay, well, we won't put a center. Well, no, there's got to be a best center. There's got to be a best guard. Hell, you made me pick a fullback, for God's sakes. You won't make me pick a center?
Yeah.
No.
Let me ask you a question on newcomer. Would any of the players from the incoming schools be considered a newcomer?
No.
Okay. All right. Okay.
No.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, it would be a different answer. Obviously, you'd have the guys who were both the offense and defensive players of the year, or Fafita, etc., who would be a part of that mix.
Yeah, that's not the spirit of what a newcomer of the year is. No. So, no, I think that would be dumb. And it'd be, the SEC's like, here's Nick Anderson from Oklahoma's the newcomer. I think that'd be silly. So, no. Could you pop that back up there? Sorry, Garrett. If you can't, that's fine. But, I think those are logical choices, Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter. I mean, there's obviously an argument that could be made for quarterback, but Shedeur is a solid argument. And so I have no issues there. If you picked anybody else, you can have an argument, and Shedeur would be part of that argument. So he very well may be the best quarterback in the league. Ollie Gordon and Taj Brooks, I know there's other guys that are good, but I think those are two pretty clearly the top producing backs that are coming back. And
I didn't have Taj. I had Devin Neal.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
But Taj Brooks had a great year, so I think that he'd be my number 2 guy right there with Ollie Gordon. Ted McMillan, Kobe Hudson, Jaden Higgins, Brendan Presley, those guys all make sense. Brent Keithy at tight end, I think, he's obviously a guy coming back from injury, but I do think that that's a logical choice. Offensive line, there's just so many guys, it's kind of hard to feel like I have a good grasp on if there's a major slight. I don't feel like I see one, but I'm sure if I search the comments, but I don't really have much of a comment on that myself. And, defensively, just looking that over as well, I think there's some good players. Tacario Davis's, Travis Hunter, obviously, you mentioned him, is getting a lot of love. But, some new faces that I think are going to be very interesting to track. Dante Corleone's on here, but we don't even know if he's going to play this year.
Yeah, but the vote, obviously, to let everyone know. We did that like 2 weeks ago.
Right.
Yeah.
So, that's something that's obviously not going to turn out to be the same way, but Kobe Bryant being back, that makes sense. I don't know about, let's see here, Jack Bowmeister. I didn't look at the punting all that in depth, so I'll just entrust that everybody got that right and that he's the best punter in the league. Special teams, not really my area of focus too much on these teams. And so there's just a new name to the league that we're all going to be seeing more of. And I don't feel like there's really anything egregious. And I'm sure if there is, somebody will let us know, and I'll be more than happy to talk about it. But this lines up, I think, pretty much with most people's team.
And it's also the mixture of 4 new schools where you had to kind of do a little bit of homework. I did not do an all-first team. I did not do that. I didn't have time to get it in by the time we needed to. But, I'm sure that there's somebody that may be an omission. And if you could see that, let us know in the chat room.
I did, and my defensive player of the year was Travis Hunter, even though I think I entered it in the wrong line. But Ollie Gordon was my offensive player of the year. I did have Devin Neal over Taj Brooks. And part of the reason was I thought that instead of giving me a fullback, I just had in my head they were going to give me 3 running backs. And, so there's only 2 in the league, and the one from Iowa State got it. The other one is from Oklahoma State, and that was kind of a coin flip. My quarterback was Avery Johnson because I think he's going to have more wins at the end of the year, quite frankly, and that's why I picked him over Shedeur, even though Shedeur...
You would have picked him over Shedeur, Cam Rising, and Fafita.
Yeah, I did. That's why I picked him, and I picked Avery Johnson. I'm sure I'm not the only one, but, I did throw in LaJohntay Wester as wide receiver at Colorado because I think he's going to have 1 million receptions this year. And Brent Keithy was my tight end, and I went position specific. They also do that on the defensive line, which irritates me too, because just let's get precision specific. And
well, you know what you should do?
Well, here's the thing about doing that, though. I'm sitting there, looking at Baylor's defense last night. I'm like, okay, is this guy a linebacker or is he a defensive end? Is this guy a safety or is he a star or is he a corner or is he an outside linebacker or is... So I know what you're saying, but it's not like football where it's like weak side linebacker, middle linebacker, Sam linebacker, corner, safeties. Like it's like stars and jacks and bucks and
was R.J. Harvey involved in the discussion at running back at all?
No,
well, because he's going to be
for me. I think he's really good, but he's not the only one on his team. For one,
Here's one of the things I saw this, and I said this on Twitter. I don't get on there as much, believe it, like 1/10 of when someone was like, "Well, I would have had so and so." The rules are there's 2 running backs. So you can name 5, but you got to only pick 2. So you can't have 4. Who then comes off if you take off Gordon or Taj Brooks? And people will have somebody that they lean on and take one of those off, or both.
Okay. I would like to retract my previous statement on defense based on what you just said because it makes so much sense. So defense has to kind of just be generic, but offense can't be. There's not there's not 5 guys who snap the ball.
I just think with that, it's hard for people to separate who the 16 left guards are and the 16 and and I think even if it was 10 or 12 teams, I mean, maybe that would make it easier, but get into the specifics. And then there's guys that move around positions. So I think they try to keep it generic just to keep it simple. But defensively, there's guys that are just so many hybrid positions now that you kind of have to go generic to just lump him into a category versus guys who maybe you're listed as corner, but he's as much a outside linebacker / safety / corner type of a position as he is just a regular corner.
They do have 5 defensive backs. You know, it's not quarterback or safety.
Yeah.
Also, some teams run a 3-man front. Some teams run 2 tackles and 2 ends, and then, again. So let's go. If you look at the first and second team, I did a little of this. 5 teams had nobody. Baylor, Arizona State, Houston, TCU, and Kansas State.
Yeah, Kansas State was a bit of a shocker to me, but Chris Kleiman probably loves it.
Oh, no.
I'm sure he woke up this morning, saw it, was mad for 10 minutes, and then went, oh.
put it up now. Oklahoma State had 6. Arizona had 5. And then there's Colorado, Iowa State, Utah, all with 3. Texas Tech, UCF, Cincinnati, KU with 2. And then West Virginia and BYU each had 1.
Oh, but by the way, Oklahoma, like when it came to offensive line, this made it really hard to vote for because on 4 of the 5 positions, you could make an argument that Oklahoma State has the best guy. They have a very good offensive line. And so, that would have made Oklahoma State dominate the team because.
Well, they have 2 of the 5.
They have 2 of the 5, and you could honestly have put 4 of the 5 on there in consideration for the best ones. Part of the reason that Kansas State doesn't have any offensive linemen on the list is they lost their 3 best ones to the draft last year, so or to the NFL. So we'll see.
The thing preventing everybody from going in all in on Oklahoma State is a little bit of a question about their defense, but it's mostly nobody trusts Alan Bowman. Nobody thinks he's really that great. I mean, let's just cut through the noise. Alan Bowman, if that was Avery Johnson, they would be like the runaway pick to win the league probably this year. Now, Utah would still get some love, I'm sure, but I think for most people, why is Oklahoma State not getting enough love? They've got receivers, and they've got the O-line, and they've got the running back, and they've got a bunch of guys on defense. I think it's just that people look around and they see better quarterbacks on other teams. And so I think it's a year for Alan Bowman to go like they did last year, go prove a lot of people wrong. Now, he wasn't the driving factor in them proving people wrong, but he had his moments. He also had some moments where he hurt them. So I think that their ceiling is going to be as high as Alan Bowman can make it and how high he can take it. But I think that's really what prevents Oklahoma State from having people go all in on them because there's a lot to like about the team other than that. So that's my 2 cents on the Cowboys. Surprised that K-State doesn't have anybody, but then again, I mean, their best candidates at running back, it's a crowded room. At quarterback, it's a crowded room. I'm sure maybe there's a defensive end or something I'm not thinking of, but there's 16 teams. There's a lot of guys that have to beat out. And, yeah, I'm sure Chris Kleiman actually loves the fact that they don't have anybody mentioned. It is surprising, though, that they don't have a single player on here. So, by all means, K-State fans, show us your picks for who you think should be on there. And if it's Avery Johnson, that's fine and that's understandable. That's not really where we're looking here. We're looking for maybe somebody who's a bit more obvious because Avery Johnson's not the quarterback because there's just a bunch of other quarterbacks that are good. Dylan Edwards isn't the top running back because there's a bunch of other proven running backs that are good. But is there somebody he's
not even the starter at Colorado, right? Giddens?
Dylan Edwards is at Kansas State.
Okay. Where's Giddens?
Giddens at Kansas State.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, you said Colorado.
Oh,
he was at Colorado.
Yeah, he was. No, they'll be splitting like the guys at UCF. Those two will be splitting. Yeah. Okay.
So, if you want to put somebody out there that you think's like those guys are not there for obvious reasons because it's crowded. But if there's an outside linebacker that everybody's whiffing on, by all means, whatever school it is, tell us who the obvious egregious errors are. Because there are a lot of names to pour through, and you can make arguments for why, but maybe there is an oversight. Although, based on what we've seen, I think it's about what you'd expect from a preseason team.
I love it when we get. I'm not sure I like it when we vote for them, but I do love it when it comes out because it's something else to chew on. Remember, just a month or so from now, you will also end up with the AP and the coaches poll that comes out, and we can all discuss that too.
Yeah.
Brett Bingham, Craig Smoke last year was also his first year running Oklahoma State's offense. Hopefully, he's able to improve from last year's experience, and the staff provide him options and advice. Does he need to be just a bus driver? Because that's not his style.
Basically.
I don't think that the issue with Alan Bowman is the system. I think it's that his ability is capped in that, I don't know if he can throw them to wins if Ollie Gordon's not having a great day. That's my question in a league that's going to be very, very tough this year. So
I do think there is. It's very fair to point out that it's a first year in an offense. That matters. Like that matters whoever you are, that you're in a different system. So yeah, he should be much more comfortable in that system, much more knowledgeable. Should be, just like the back of his hand. He should know it all too well, and should definitely be better in that regard. But the actual skill level, I think is the question mark. And can he not turn over the football? Can he make big-time throws in big-time situations? I think he's just not a star. Like, he's just not. And that's fine because most of the quarterbacks in this league and most of the quarterbacks in college football are not stars. So that's not a knock. It's just that he's not Shedeur Sanders. He doesn't have the upside of Avery Johnson. He's not that level of talent, but he's plenty good to get into the Big 12 championship game and just kind of do his thing. And so, I don't think he's going to be the guy that leads you to the promised land on, everybody get on his back. But I do think he's good enough to get you pretty deep. Being in a system for another year should only help. But I just think that he's kind of at his ceiling as far as his actual skill level goes at this point in his career. When you're talking 7 years deep in the college game, I just think we've kind of seen what you have to offer as far as your physical attributes and your skill level. So I think that's where a lot of people are coming from.
Man, before he got hurt at Tech, he was putting up crazy numbers. Remember that when he was at Tech, slinging it around everywhere? Of course, a lot of time quarterbacks at Tech have done that.
Well, and part of the reason I voted them fourth was not just because of my, lack of confidence in his overall skill, given the fact that the other teams in the top four all have better quarterbacks than him, at least skill-wise, and was that I'm not convinced that he's going to go through 2 seasons in a row of being completely healthy because that's never happened in his life.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair, but he just did it last year. Yeah. Basically, I'm more worried about the fact that he threw 15 touchdowns and 14 interceptions. Yeah. I mean, that's what bothers me is that he nearly had 50-50 on touchdowns and INTs, even though they didn't throw the ball a ton. So I think that's, it's a combination of factors. But Alan Bowman is the reason why Oklahoma State – I don't even want to say that because it sounds like some big hot take, so I don't even want to make it like that. But I think that's, like I said a few moments ago, that's probably what prevents people from going further with their Oklahoma State selection, is just not feeling like maybe they have that star at that position.
All right, there we go with that. Now, we have Tim Healy, who's the voice at Arizona State, by the way, today at 3:45. Jeremy Branham, who's the sideline reporter for Houston football. He's also the play-by-play for basketball at 4:25. And Brian Jensen, voice of Texas Tech football, will be on with us a little after 5, plus what we normally have on Tuesdays with Paul's Top 5 every day and Craig's Off the Radar. 50-year anniversary being celebrated in September. Baylor against Air Force at McLean Stadium. The 1974 Miracle on the Brazos, right? The Southwest Conference champions will be celebrated, and that ought to be an emotional night. Grant Taft, of course, the head coach of that team, and had done such a great job in a short amount of time with the Bears.
I wish the 50th anniversary would have fallen a year ago when Texas would have been in the stadium for that.
Oh, yeah.
But obviously that didn't happen, and Texas is now on to the SEC. But that team will be talked about more than maybe any other Baylor team, including the ones that have won conference titles in the Big 12, just because of what it meant to what it meant to the university at the time, and kind of probably the first time in Baylor football history that they woke up on a Sunday morning and believed in the future. Like it just wasn't a dream or something like that. It wasn't a one-off thing. They beat Texas. They won the conference. It was a great game. And they looked and said, "Oh, we've got this coach and Coach Taft." And it was just a belief that maybe what hadn't been there in the 50 years prior.
Yeah, and the miracle on the Brazos itself was that win over Texas where they were down 24-7 at halftime, and they came back to win. And they ended up winning the league that year, as you mentioned. They went 8-4 and played in the Cotton Bowl. And so that was a very big to-do, all of those things that I just mentioned. And, had a bunch of top 25 wins, wins over number 12 Oklahoma State, number 14 Arkansas, number 12 Texas, number 20 Texas Tech. They beat TCU. They beat Florida State. Taft was the coach of AFCA Coach of the Year. So there was a lot that came with that team. And for a program that didn't have a ton of history, that's why that holds a soft spot in Baylor fans' hearts is that miracle on the Brazos team. And I've heard about that, since I arrived years and years ago. It didn't, I guess, didn't resonate with me because it was like, years before I was born, and I'm not a Baylor historian and all of that, but it was very easily found out just how much that team meant and still means to a lot of people. So, yeah, they have a special place in the history of the program, and so cool to see that they're going to get honored. And like Paul said, probably would have been cooler to have it against Texas, given that's what they're, that's really what set the cherry on top, so to speak. But regardless, they deserve to get honored, and that'll be good to see on a 50-year anniversary.
All right. The SEC had their welcoming parties on Sunday with Texas, Monday with Oklahoma. All that's official. I saw this note. Since 1992, we're talking 32 years, how many schools have actually won out of the conference? How many schools in the SEC since 1992 have won an SEC football championship? Off the top of your head. Not complicated, just
6.
Yeah. I'll say 7 just to be different.
Yeah.
You want to name them?
Florida, Alabama.
Okay, Florida.
Well, you asked me to name them.
Well, I know, but let me make sure. Right?
Okay, Florida, Alabama, Georgia, Auburn, LSU. Who else?
Tennessee. That's it.
Yeah. So
that's
6.
It. Yeah. So
5 or 6?
6.
Okay.
Alabama, Auburn, Florida, Georgia, LSU, and Tennessee. Out of all those teams, and we've always discussed how good they are, and a lot of those teams went on to win national titles as well.
I think Ole Miss won about 10 of them the way they talk sometimes.
Yeah. Alabama's won 10 of the last 25, LSU 5, Georgia 4, Florida with 3, and Auburn with 3. It's interesting that they have, there's no one that has really much ever, right? Garrett snuck up and won.
Nobody, really.
Yeah, 21 Baylor, 22 TCU or whoever that kind of comes out of nowhere because they have had such a nice depth at the top of teams that are winning titles, and so it's hard to just sneak through there.
No, I think this year would probably be your best bet with Ole Miss having the team they have if they could sneak in. But other than that, it's always been the usual suspects.
Yeah. Okay. I just wanted to throw that out there. I would have probably said more, just not thinking through it. But Vanderbilt, no. South Carolina, no. Mississippi State, they had that one team a couple times that made a run, but
well,
no.
They had the one with Dak, and then it was over before it really even got started.
It's like he can't finish the deal.
Yeah, no. All right, there is
if
one.
If only we were known back then.
We have a story that's not good. By the way, welcome to the Division I officially now, a school that we've given a lot of coverage to in Tarleton State that is now a part of Division I after the transition period of 4 years. Blake Anderson out as the head football coach at Utah State, also a vice president, deputy athletic director of external affairs, Jerry Bovee, and Utah football director of player development in Austin Albrecht. All of them are done. This is weird.
Yeah, okay, so to sum up, Blake Anderson has been fired for violating both his employment agreement and university policy. And it also alleges he violated rules that prohibit employees from investigating disclosures of sexual misconduct themselves. So someone came to allegedly, someone came to Blake Anderson and told him of something that happened, a sexual misconduct. And instead of turning it over to the university, he looked into it himself, which, as we know all too well, is never a good thing for a coach to do. And then Jerry Bovee and Austin Albrecht, violations of university policies, related to reporting of sexual and domestic violence and failures of professional responsibilities. So whatever happened, the three of them did not report it to the proper channels.
You would think that you would learn from history, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's...
Nothing good's going to happen with that.
No.
Well, I just don't know what they possibly could have been. Like, is cover up the right word? I mean, is it? But, like, what player are we talking? Like, nobody's that valuable to Utah State freaking football to go through all of this to where you're losing jobs. You know what? Do you know what I'm trying to say here? Is like
of all the cases that have ever happened, like these investigations, I would say that's like 5% of them. You can be like, oh, well, I see why they pulled out all the stops for that guy.
Yeah, you're not condoning it, but you're saying, like, I understand why they went to.
I get why they're like, oh, please don't let this be true at all because this guy is the best player we've ever had, kind of a thing. And then there's 95% where you could be like, well, okay, go ahead.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like I'll tell you here, Sam Mukawachu didn't help Baylor do anything.
Nope.
Didn't help Baylor do a thing.
Never played it down, and they still won titles without him. So my thought was you can just let those guys go and then get a guy who can maybe play, and not cause those problems.
Yeah, I don't know if that's just the coach in you, the parent in you, that you feel like you're trying to help kids. That's what you will hear. And so that's why you maybe make that terrible decision. I don't know. There's not a lot of details here. It's obviously a bad look. It's a terrible look for Blake Anderson. He's been through a lot in life, as we know. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't, excuse anything just because you've been through a lot in life that you can go and make poor decisions. But, yeah, I don't know, or does I think anybody know enough to have a super strong opinion other than obviously it was bad enough that they're cleaning house. I mean, it's not just like he's gone. There's multiple people being relieved of duty. So, yeah.
Someone in administration.
Something pretty bad happened, and Utah State will have to answer more questions about that, I'm sure. But, yeah, it's a terrible look without even knowing exactly what we're talking about here, other than clearly trying to cover up some instance of sexual violence, misconduct. Yeah. So whatever that entails, like, yeah, that's a no-go. Absolutely cannot happen, and that's why heads are rolling, obviously, and Utah State is acting. So yeah, I'm sure we'll hear more about that.
When I saw this, the first thing I thought about is I just saw him, and we had a break to come back with Tim Healy. Just on Saturday alone, he introduced Cannon Blake Anderson, his son, who was born Saturday morning. He's 55 years old. Remember, his wife passed away because of cancer. He was remarried, and the baby came a little bit earlier than expected. And so you have that moment, and then here we are 3 days later, and he's no longer the head coach. He's been at Arkansas State. He was on staff at Baylor many years ago, and now he is out at Utah State. All right, when we come back, Tim Healy, voice of Arizona State. Later on, Jeremy Branham on Houston. Later on, also Brian Jensen, voice of Texas Tech football. John McClain today at 5:30. Michael Early is now officially the head baseball coach at Texas A&M. He was introduced earlier today.
And Graham Grahovac and
a bunch.
Jace Laviolette are coming back.
Yeah,
so.
and there's still some like Hayden, Kent.
Yeah.
He's not made the decision. There's a lot of players that still have to make a decision.
It does lead me to think, though, that not necessarily everybody would have just gone to Austin. Like, they might have scattered a little bit more.
If possibly.
Yeah, I mean, it would probably have been a nice chunk, but
still might be a few.
Might be a few, but I don't think it would have been like he just took the whole roster. I think there might have been.
They were able to salvage what otherwise could have been
somebody goes to Bama, somebody goes to LSU, somebody goes. They get in the NIL waters and go.
When we come back, Tim Healy, voice of Arizona State, Craig Smoke, Paul Catalina. I'm David Smoke. We appreciate your time. Please hit the like and subscribe button if you haven't already. And this is.
I was glad we didn't lose too many after Paul turning away all the Longhorn fans that listened to this show yesterday. I was worried. I was like, are we going to dip?
We're not done.
No, I figured, but I had to go double check the subscriber numbers after yesterday to make sure.
Yeah, I am not done with that because that got a little bit messy. I mean, a little bit messy, but Paul fired back today. Got to give him credit for that on the triple option. This is 365 Sports. Stonewood Dental, Robinson, Texas. Dr. Steve Childress and his staff of dentists, techs, specialists, hygienists, and more do a great job and will help you if, in fact, your dental work is not what you want it to be. Maybe because, and most of the time it's because of you. You are not doing everything you need to do. You're too busy. You brush your teeth and that's it. You go to bed, you brush your teeth before that, and that's it. Instead of also making sure you maintain hygiene work around your dental work. You might have, if you don't, root canals, teeth being pulled, bridges and more. Why? Why do you want that? So make sure if you need a dentist that can help tell you exactly what you want to know, even if it's not going to be good news. That's what he did with me, Dr. Steve Childress in Stonewood Dental in Robinson, Texas.
Ahoy! That is hello and check.
Let the journey to financial brilliance begin with Genco's limited time offers. Max your earnings with a Kasasa cash account and get paid monthly with a 4.25 APY. That's $425 annually. Then invest in a 13-month share certificate and earn 4.9 APY. That's $529. Earn cash and outshine the rest. At Genco, we offer you the sun and the moon. Kasasa based on average daily balance of $10,000. Certificate based on $10,000 investment. See GencoFCU.org for details. NCUA.
Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive is a premier elite life-changing experience where you can change your mind, body, and soul. Offering over 50 group exercise classes every week, including boot camp, bar, silver sneakers, and 10 cycling classes with morning and evening classes available. New state-of-the-art bikes that allow you to compete against yourself with a screen monitoring your speed, miles, resistance, and power. Personal training with Christy London, Randall Corley, Alex Botch, and Nathan Roach, where you will be encouraged and motivated to grow, losing inches in weight the right way. There's a kids club included with your membership, plus sauna and tanning bed. 16 tennis courts, plus a beautiful stadium court, and longtime youth tennis pro Britt Coleman and assistant junior pro Kenna. Adult tennis lessons and clinics with Blake, and the commitment to pickleball with 8 courts and instructor Jody Thurman. Visit the website at wacotennis.com next to Hawaiian Falls on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Shadow Creek High School down in the Houston area, one of the best high schools in Texas. Ja'Cory Watson, 4-star wide receiver, earlier this afternoon committed to play at Baylor, class of 2025. Wanted to get that to you as well. Tim Healy, longtime voice of Arizona State Sun Devils athletics, joins us. Craig Smoke, Paul Catalina, David Smoke on 365 Sports. Tim, I've known about you. I then went online and just looked at a couple of things, and I saw consummate pro, is Arizona State athletics, and much more. And I know that you are also someone that gives a lot of people around you the credit, but that says quite a bit about what people think of the work you do.
Well, I appreciate that. I mean, it's been a long time. This will be my 27th year doing their radio. I also did their television play-by-play for 10 years prior to that. I was a TV sports anchor in a previous life. And actually, as part of that life, I spent 4 years in the Metroplex. I was a sportscaster at Channel 4 in Dallas from 1979 to 1983. Got to work with the great Dale Hansen for a brief period of time. And I spent 4 years in Dallas. In fact, my son was born in Dallas and was as elated as anybody when the Rangers won the World Series out here last year. So. But, you do anything long enough and hopefully people, will say a few nice things about you. But it's been fun, although not as much fun the last couple of years because it's been a tough go for ASU athletics. This past school year was not a great one. To be very candid, the football program's coming off consecutive 3-9 seasons, the worst record in program history. Men's basketball had a tough year this past year. Baseball is getting better, but still has missed the NCAA tournament the last 3 years. But we have a new athletic director, Graham Rossini, who is a former ASU baseball ops director and a Sun Devil graduate and a passionate Arizona State alum. He and Kenny Dillingham, our football coach, kind of fit the same profile. They're both ASU graduates who have a passion for this university, for this school, for its programs. And I just think both of them are going to succeed long-term in their jobs. And we're all anxious to see how football fares in year one of the Big 12 this coming fall.
Tim, Dale Hansen, great friend of our show. We've known him for a long time. He is legendary, to say the least. But with the changes at the top of the athletic department, how much was that needed? Because it felt to me that just outside looking in that there wasn't a lot of direction in the previous administration.
Well, it kind of had to happen. Our previous AD, Ray Anderson, resigned in November. Ray was very much attached to the hiring of Herm Edwards and all that unfolded in that. Although I would submit an argument that the first 3 years of Herm's time here was a period of time where the program was actually on an upward trajectory. But then the NCAA investigation into the program was revealed in June of 2021. And ever since then, it's just been a struggle. But I think the worst of that is behind the program now. It's full speed ahead with a new head coach entering his second year and a new conference now in the Big 12. And, the Big 12 preseason media poll came out today and picked Arizona State dead last in the Big 12 this coming year. But coming off the two seasons they've had in the last two, it's not horribly surprising. But I really think the Sun Devils this year have a chance to be a whole lot better than what the Big 12 media thinks they'll be.
Well, there's only one way to go, and that's up, right, Tim? It's like you can't.
That's for sure.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
So they can only beat expectations, or I guess meet them. But it does feel like they're probably getting a little undervalued. And with that change in conferences, I know there was a lot of love, a lot of history for the Pac-12. I mean, that ran deeper than just a conference name that you slapped on your jerseys. Just how did you sort of view all that? How has Arizona State as a collective kind of navigated those waters? And I guess what would you say is kind of general feeling about now entering the Big 12, granted with some familiar faces also joining them?
Yeah, it's the word I've used for the last 10 months or so is bittersweet. And for about 9 months, we dealt with the bitter part of it, leaving the Pac-12. As I told you guys, I'm in my 37th year, counting the time on television, 37th year broadcasting ASU sports, and they've been in the Pac-12 that entire time. We've gone to the same places, the same towns, broadcast from the same venues. We've seen so many great players and coaches in this league, favorite hangouts, restaurants, bars, whatever. You get familiar with the territory in all these places. You get to know the other radio broadcasters, the other media folks in those towns, the sports information people from each university, and you develop friendships. And it's very sad, to be honest, to have to put those on hold or, wonder when will we ever get to Seattle or Eugene or Corvallis or Pullman or the Bay Area or Los Angeles again. Trips that seem almost second nature to ASU folks. But this past school year was like that one grand, farewell tour and saying goodbye and all that stuff. Last ever. This is our last ever football game here, our last ever basketball game there. But now that we've dealt with the bitter, it's time to look to the sweet and look ahead to a new conference and new places to visit and new rivalries and new folks to meet, fellow broadcasters in the Big 12 and writers and stuff like that, and sports information people, and visiting new venues and seeing, outstanding teams and players and coaches in one of the best college conferences in the country. And I've already been, in my job at Arizona State, I've already broadcast games, non-conference games at Texas Tech. I did BYU. One of the greatest basketball games in Arizona State history was a dramatic 10-point win over then number 2 Kansas at Allen Fieldhouse in December of 17. Might be my biggest thrill in 27 years calling that game. We played in a baseball regional at TCU in 2016, and I'm sure you guys probably remember we played in round 2 of the NIT at Baylor in 2013 and lost a close game to Baylor in the second round. An Arizona State team that the following year went to the NCAA tournament. So we've been to a lot of the places in the league. I even did a baseball game in Manhattan, Kansas, at Kansas State about 16 years ago. So I've been to some of the places, and we played Oklahoma State a couple times in football, and we're going back there in football and basketball this coming season. So fairly familiar to a certain extent, but looking forward to getting more involved with that. And also, because of my background at Channel 4, I got a heaping helping of what football means in the state of Texas. And so I'm kind of looking forward to games, against or at TCU and Baylor and Texas Tech and Houston. In fact, our first ever Big 12 game will be at Tech in September 21st. And just looking forward to, starting rivalries with the Texas schools and getting a taste of what that's like. And Arizona State has already established a very solid recruiting footprint in Texas under Kenny Dillingham. And in fact, I think Arizona State has the number 1 rated recruiting class in the Big 12 for 2025 as of right now. If it's not number 1, it's in the top 2 or 3, that's for sure. I mean, Kenny and his staff have crushed it on the recruiting trail. And because of that, and because of his abilities and his expertise as an offensive coach and the energy that he has and the staff that he has around him, I have a lot of confidence that Arizona State's going to be good in football in the very short-term future under Coach Dillingham's leadership.
Tim, I have a soft spot for Tempe because my father was at Luke Air Force Base getting his master's at Arizona State back in the late 60s. I've always loved Arizona State. I've also thought, and that's back when, in the 60s when you had the Reggie Jacksons and the Charlie Taylors and much more. So I'm 65 years old, but I go back to that. Then, of course, the Jake Plummer, et cetera, Barry Bonds. My question for you, I've always thought that ASU is a sleeping giant. Do they understand that they're a sleeping giant?
Well, to tell you the truth, that's a phrase that I can't tell you how many times I've heard that and used about Arizona State through the years, a sleeping giant. And, just to a lot of our fans, I'm sure it seems like the nap has lasted a lot longer than it should have. But I really think that we have people and coaches in place, at least in the 3 sports I do. I've talked about Kenny Dillingham. Bobby Hurley has brought in 2 5-star recruits, and I think we have a chance to be really good in basketball this coming fall. And we have had some memorable moments in basketball under Coach Hurley's leadership the last decade, and he has really, really crushed it on the recruiting trail with a pair of 5-star recruits coming in. And I can't wait for the start of basketball season, and especially given the fact that we'll now be playing in what I think arguably is the best basketball conference in the country. And under one of our former all-time great players, Willie Bloomquist, our baseball program has shown exponential improvement each of the last 3 seasons, and potentially could have been NCAA regional teams the last 2, but just weren't able to finish the deal either season. But I think under Willie's leadership, I think we have a chance to turn a corner in baseball as well as we head to the Big 12. So hopefully that nap is about to end, and all the great things that exist about Arizona State, highly desirable place to live, the Phoenix metropolitan area. If you discount the 107-degree temperatures we have outside as we speak here, for about 8 months of the year, the weather is as good as any place in the country. And we have very good facilities. We do need a refurbishing, or we need help with a basketball arena. Our basketball arena is showing its age, to be polite. But other than that, our facilities, they've redone what used to be known as Sun Devil Stadium, now Mountain America Stadium, and it's a great venue for football. Our baseball team plays at the former home of spring training home of the Oakland A's, Phoenix Municipal Stadium, and it's a wonderful facility. And basketball does have a terrific practice facility. We have good facilities out here, and there's a lot to be proud of at Arizona State. And we're looking forward to the start of play in the Big 12. And I do think that the program, the department as a whole, and in particular the programs for which I broadcast, have a good chance to turn a corner soon.
Tim, you mentioned that you think the team has more potential than where everybody voted them, down towards the bottom of the league. Do you think if they had a returning starter at quarterback that might have been a little bit different?
Possibly. Given the record of the last 2 years, it's not, as I said, it's not surprising they were picked last. But the one thing I can tell you is I think there's a really good chance that when the Sun Devils play their season opener against Wyoming on August 31st, that an actual quarterback may take the snap at center on the first play of the game. Because in the last 2 games of the season, ASU was so injury-riddled that Kenny Dillingham was actually having to play 2 nationally ranked Pac-12 opponents, Oregon and Arizona, with running backs and tight ends taking the snaps from center. And because they were so depleted injury-wise. And if they had a returning starter, that might make a difference. I've always felt that a returning, and especially a talented returning starting quarterback, is a huge plus for a team. And, with ASU, you have basically, in all likelihood, 3 players that will compete for the job. They have a transfer from Michigan State, Sam Levitt, who was a highly recruited freshman from the Portland, Oregon area. You have Jeff Sims, who was a quarterback at Nebraska last year and had troubles with turnovers, but he had 3 fairly efficient seasons at Georgia Tech prior to that. And then you have Trenton Bourget, who was a one-time walk-on from the Tucson area, who took over in the late part of the 2022 season and did a tremendous job, and was in and out of the lineup last year because of injury. But one of those 3 will probably be the starter at quarterback in August. But, it's possible that if they had a more seasoned starter, they might have been picked a notch or 2 higher. But I don't really pay much attention to those polls. I think this football team is going to be a run-oriented team. Arizona State can actually go 6 deep at tailback this year, and they've got some talent there, including a kid, Alton McCaskill, who was the American Athletic Conference Freshman of the Year at Houston a couple of years ago. And he got hurt, sat out 22, played at Colorado last year for Deion Sanders, but didn't play very much. And he's now at Arizona State, along with a former 5-star recruit from USC, Raleek Brown, that I think could be used in any number of ways: slot receiver, wide receiver, running back out of the backfield. Their own running back, Cam Scattaboo, who was one of the players that took snaps at quarterback late in the season last year, was an honorable mention All Pac-12 performer. A highly regarded freshman running back out of the state of Washington, Jason Brown Jr., no relation to Raleek Brown. A kid named DeCarlos Brooks, who transferred, a Phoenix area product, who started at Cal and then transferred in last year, ran well when he was healthy, but he was hurt for about half the season. But they go about 6 deep at running back, and they've added a lot of depth to an offensive line that was absolutely decimated by injuries a year ago. And this is a team that ran for over 200 yards, even though they got their clocks cleaned by their arch rival Arizona in the season finale last year. They ran for something like 220 yards against the Wildcats. And I think they have the potential to be a pretty good running football team this year. And hopefully they can get the passing game going with whoever is a quarterback and an improved group of receivers.
I think you kind of all addressed it there, because I was going to ask you about the running backs. I mean, that certainly seems to be their strong suit. I love the McCaskill pickup. I mean, obviously health is going to be a factor, but if he's healthy, then if he can replicate what he did a couple years ago in Houston, that would be fantastic. But I did also want to ask you about Cam Skattebo. In the midst of what was a lot of trials and tribulations and just hard times, I mean, how much energy and just excitement did he kind of interject from time to time? How much fun do you have calling his style of play in his games?
Oh, he's a blast. I mean, he is that all-purpose player. He's kind of a throwback player. You know, he probably would have been good in the era with leather helmets and no face masks. You know, and I think he was one of the finalists for the Paul Hornung Award, and justifiably so, because this is a guy who played. You know, he was a running back. He played quarterback at times last year. He was used as a receiver. Played on special teams, both punt and kickoff teams. Just an absolute throwback of a player that was, I think, one of the most versatile in the country last year. And he was a quality running back, and had a great game against USC here at home back in September. And he's just a blast to watch. And it's funny, his name is spelled like it would be pronounced Skattebo. Mm-hmm. But it's pronounced Skattebo, and he's terrific. He's rushed for over almost 2,700 yards in his career. He was at Sacramento State, I think it was, before he came to Arizona State, and just a terrific FCS All-American a couple of years ago, and just really, really solid last year. He was fun to watch, no question about it.
Hey, Tim, look forward to having you on again and more. We had C.J. Fight, the young man from Tatum High School, who was really good as a freshman for you at Arizona State. A great personality. He's going to be on this deal in Washington, D.C., representing Arizona State in the Big 12, and there's some meetings. It was fun to have him on the show. Glad to have you on the show. We'll have Coach Dillingham at Big 12 Media Days, and so thanks for your time, and enjoy the rest of the summer, whatever you have left.
You too, and hopefully we'll see you guys in Las Vegas.
We will be there. Absolutely. Look forward to seeing you, shaking your hand, and saying hi. Tim Healy, voice of Arizona State Athletics, with us on 365 Sports.
Yeah, it's fun getting to know some new people, and we'll get to, I guess, meet a bunch of new people coming up next week. But Arizona State, as kind of alluded to there, being picked last, I mean, there's only one way to go, and that's up. And certainly they could surprise some people. I mean, McCaskill, I really hope he's healthy. I mean, if he is, that would be a giant jolt, although they're really good at running back, as he pointed out. And Skattebo is one of the more fun players to watch. I mean, Arizona State was not fun to watch last year, but I did watch a good bit of them just because of the times that they were on. And Skattebo was like the player you walked away talking about or thinking about from what you had just seen, whether they were winning or losing. So, yeah, I'm excited to see him. And, obviously CJ Fight was on the show yesterday.
Yep.
Hopefully he has a big – sophomore year, and we'll see. I mean, there's not a lot of expectations for Kenny Dillingham and company. They just got to mind their business and, mind their P's and Q's and just go about working and just see where it takes them. But, again, you can only go up from where they are as far as expectations go. So, yeah, they could definitely be a team that surprises people, or they could be a team that's still very much in fluctuation and rebuild mode because of what was left to Kenny Dillingham, which is a real shame. But that was the hand you were dealt, and so you're still kind of working your way out of that.
All right, thanks to Tim Healy. We'll have Jeremy Branham around the corner on Houston, Willie Fritz, Donovan Smith, and much more. And then also, again, Brian Jensen, voice of Tech football at 5:10. This is 365 Sports. TexasBeefhouse.com. I'm going to record an interview with Samantha Duvall either tonight or tomorrow. They are wrapping up yet another online auction. And guess what? There's another one just a couple of weeks from now. If you have not ordered from Texas Beef House, and I just saw Jackson Mars, I just saw Red Raider Tech getting involved and asking questions about what they have. everything. What's your favorite, Katie Rader, what's your favorite box or good? All of it, from sausage. I just mentioned that the skirt steak they have is fantastic when it comes to fajitas. Wagyu, farm-raised, Texas farm-raised Wagyu steak, beef, and then steaks. Also, ribeyes, bone-in, and more. If you want New York strips, yes, they have that too. They're going to have another online auction in the middle of the month. We'll give you more details on that. But you can go to TexasBeefHouse.com. You can contact them. Samantha and the staff will take your order and get it to you. They can ship to all 48, right, Craig? Contiguous states, and also even sometimes overseas. I'm talking about outside of the United States. Kim Coulter, I think Paxton, retired stockbroker, and many others have ordered Texas Beef House steak, and oh, you know I have too. It's fantastic. For more information, and the online auctions allow you to buy the steak at the price you want at TexasBeefHouse.com.
Let the journey to financial brilliance begin with Genco's limited time offers. Max your earnings with a Kasasa cash account and get paid monthly with a 4.25 APY. That's $425 annually. Then invest in APY. That's $529. Earn cash and outshine the rest. At Genco, we offer you the sun and the moon. Kasasa based on average daily balance of $10,000. Certificate based on $10,000 investment. See GencoFCU.org for details. NCUA.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine now has 2 locations to serve you. The original on Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street, and the brand new spot in downtown Waco at 600 Franklin Avenue. If you're looking for the best in craft beers or local Texas bourbons, then the original is the place to be. And for the latest trends and online phenomenons, head downtown to the Franklin location. Either way, you're going to get the same great variety, customer service, and speedy experience. Check out both locations on their Facebook and Instagram pages. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street, and now downtown on Franklin Avenue.
This is 365 Sports. Text us at 254-339-1122. The text line is sponsored by Riverbend's Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
All right, we wrapped up yesterday's show on a day that was the SEC welcoming their 2 newest members, big-time logos, brands, great tradition, history, and more in Texas and Oklahoma. And Paul Catalina finished the show with the top 5. And I was like, at the end of the top 5, I start working on promos. I'm listening because I know what it was about. It was about be careful to the SEC. Paul, I get that right? Be careful that Texas is coming into the SEC.
Well, the point was there was a lot of jocularity involved. Like number 5 was that Boomer Sooner is going to get stuck in your head. You'll go to an OU game and you'll be brushing your teeth going Boomer Sooner, Boomer Sooner. It's just how it is. And that the fans, every time that you have a coach that's really good that they want to hire, they'll say that every time he, his dream is to live in Austin, Texas. That was the famous thing about Nick Saban.
Every time you lose a recruit or you beat them for a recruit, it's always, we didn't offer, didn't really want him anyways. Yeah. That's every school, but that's definitely.
So the last one was a picture of a longhorn mounting another cow. And I said, you'll have the feeling sometimes that this is happening. And the response from OU fans on that was, it's hilarious. We do have a lot of events in Dallas, and our song is, an earworm. So the Texas fans there were 2 responses from Texas fans. They're the ones that were like laughing about it because they were self-aware, but the majority of the ones that commented We're not very self-aware, and they're like my favorite comment was Baylor boy is sad that he's in the lesser conference, and most people responded, "Well, he went to FSU."
Yeah, he's a Florida State guy.
Yeah, so like,
anyone that calls any of us a Baylor boy is obviously don't watch.
But that was a lot. There was a lot of that, and then it splintered off, and I think maybe they saw the tweet conversation I had with somebody yesterday about, well, we don't care about horns down. Well, you kind of sound like you care. One, and that's just everybody else. I wish they would do research on how it really stopped.
How many times in that conversation did we say it's not the majority of Texas fans?
Yes.
Like 1,000 times?
Yeah.
So, there's a lot of I didn't watch it and I didn't listen to it and I didn't read it, but here's my really strong opinion on what you apparently did that I gathered from a sentence that I read on Twitter or 30 seconds of a clip. I can't stand that. If you're going to have an opinion and you're going to, go at Paul or whatever, that's fine, but the not having paid attention, I don't respect that.
Okay.
Respects, I'm sure that'll just, I don't respect, whatever, but at least be knowledgeable about what you're firing back on. Now, if you don't like what he said, that's perfectly fine.
Sure.
But the Baylor boy and all that's just
okay.
So
dumb.
I found it comical.
Yeah,
very much.
Okay, but let me tell you how the show ended. Okay, you did your top 5, and there were 3 specific Texas fans that have been with us for a long time.
They're back today.
UT Parking
back.
Sandra Green.
I don't know about her.
She's disappeared before.
Yeah.
And Paxton.
They're back.
Who is going to continue to watch us. And I know Paxton can be a lightning rod in the chat room with a lot of people.
Yeah.
And he's got a little bit of that Texas bravado in him.
Yeah. They're back. And I was not trying. Again, when that picture wasn't even about the fans. That was about the administration and the way that Texas kind of handles their business. I did have an exchange with someone, and I don't normally do this. You guys know I don't really do that, but I did have an exchange with somebody on Twitter yesterday about horns down specifically, where they were like, well, none of us have a problem with it. And I'm like, yeah, that's not what I said. I said the fans don't care. There's a disconnect between the fans and the administration. I'm giving you credit that you don't care. Someone at Texas cares, and he was like, no, everybody else cares.
No.
And I was, no.
The way the show ended in the chat room was like Sandra Green said, I'll miss Craig, but David Smoke, enjoy your small Big 12 audience, which that's one thing I want to clarify too.
Forget you then.
We do a lot of Big 12 coverage. We showed the standings. We'll do that when the SEC comes out and others as well. What we started 4 years ago was a Baylor core show. We did. But if you look behind us, there are different helmets, and there's not a Baylor logo that I can see other than on their helmet. That doesn't mean we don't cover the heck of it, and we do. But it's just when people don't really understand that because we're in Waco. When we have an audience, when we show those cities or talked about those cities coast to coast that listen or watch us. So everything's good. Texas fans were mad at Paul for like 5 minutes. That's good. UT Parking. Let's not rehash that. Paxton texted me. And he said, I'm over it. And then Paxton also, like, people wanted to know, why are you going to continue to watch the show? He's a college football fan. Yeah. That's what we do.
We love I love all of college football. I do. I love the stuff that I don't like. Like, I love what Miami and Florida are going to play this year. Now, I could be a hateful person and not watch that game at all. Guess what? Texas and Florida are going to play each other. I'm going to watch that game and take 6 showers, but I'm going to watch it.
Yeah.
So those, I love when there's 2 teams, 11 guys on either side running at each other violently.
Yeah.
I love it. And I love the nuances of it. And I will make fun of everybody. If you'll notice, number 3, I went hard after the Aggies. I mean, and I live that. I live it. I'm not pulling any punches. I'll make fun of Florida State all day.
No, and we do. But I just like every once in a while it's good to throw it out there. Let the T-shirts be on the clotheslines and let the breeze kind of clear the air. I thought Sandra Greenberry was an OU fan. I don't think so. I think she's a UT fan.
OU fans,
Yeah, but
they got off lighter.
They did.
They got off lighter. To be fair,
the last one was I thought you should have been suspended.
Now every time I type something into Google, they're going to wonder what I'm looking for.
Yeah,
even if I put in chili recipe, they're going to be like, is that code for some kind of animal mating?
Yeah, I don't like the whole trying to stick people in defined boxes of, well, you're just this. You're not telling me whatever the hell I am, pal. I don't care who you are. We're going to do whatever we want to do, talk about whatever we want to talk about. If you want propaganda, go watch Feinbaum. I mean, if that's what you are looking for, if you want a nice, neat box, then go for it. But, and respect to that show and what they do. But, yeah, we're not like just boxing ourselves in. We're going to talk about whatever the hell we want to. And a lot of times it'll be Big 12. Guess what? Not a lot of people do that. Doing something different. I mean, there's been a bunch of shows that have started up or have gotten bigger and simultaneous as us because of the Big 12's changes. But, yeah, we're going to talk about all sorts of things, and sometimes we're going to poke fun at Texas or at Oklahoma or at Pitt or Vandy. We always roll back around, and that's what college football is. So, yeah, there's no nice little neat box that we all get packed into. Sorry to break it to you.
All right, so we wanted to clear the air on that, and so Paul hates Texas. There's no question, and what he did in the last of the top 5 was uncalled for, and I'm here for that. It was like it got a little bit like at the end, and UT Parking skipped out on us a few times. We love you. Sandra Green, yes. Paxton. He's like another son. So there we are with that. Now, by the way, we mentioned the Baylor getting the 4-star wide receiver, Ja'Cory Watson. Guy goes, I guess the Baylor NIL money is finally kicking in from a guy named Turd Ferguson.
That's actually
a compliment.
That's from an SNL sketch where it was an SNL Celebrity Jeopardy where Norm Macdonald was playing Burt Reynolds. And he changed his name on the thing to Turd Ferguson.
Well, there he is. That's who he is. Now,
man, that's a good get for them. I mean, they need more stuff like that. I just think the ability to get like super excited about things is, I'm just one that's tapping the brakes a little bit because commits are great. But I know that we've interviewed no less than over the time that I've been doing sports radio, probably 50 recruits who didn't end up where they were when we interviewed them.
Sure.
It's a day for celebration. It's a day for the coaches to be excited. It's something to build off of. But ultimately, like every other part of the equation for the program is they've got to go win games this season, or it doesn't matter in the long run. Now, it matters right now, but make sure that it continues to matter and that Dave Aranda's still here by going out and winning games. And that's the part I'm so looking forward to for everybody is just all the talk. We've been talking for a while. We'll have a whole more, 8 weeks of talking, especially this month's going to be really, really busy with all the media days, and I'm looking forward to that. But, yeah, for Baylor, I think there's just this inability to go all in because you don't know how long the ride still has to go, right? And so if there's a way for them to go out and win a bunch of games, and that solidifies Aranda where you go, all right, he's not going anywhere for at least 2-3 years, then you can start to really build onto that. But I think that's been kind of a challenge here over the last year and a half or so.
Yeah, there could be a tire that is a blown tire before the end of September, and then again it could be something that, hey, they're hanging around and showing quite a bit of what they've been trying to do throughout the offseason, which is across the board trying to find a way to make this program relevant again. Here's one more note, and then we go to our interview with Jeremy Branham, who covers Houston sideline reporter. This is from ESPN Schick. Here is I saw this today, and for the last several months, even with everyone knowing the conferences we're adding, et cetera, today's the day that ESPN.com actually showed the conferences as they are. And part of that is that today and yesterday, the official dates, there's still the Pac-12 have to wait till August officially, but they have them. Here is the 18-team Big Ten. And I love this. ESPN has updated its website to now include the conference editions. The Big Ten is now a CVS receipt. Who's longer, a CVS receipt or is it Office Depot? Because Office Depot will go for a while.
Yeah, they're both about the same. CVS, the weird thing about CVS is you get a long receipt. If I walked in there and I bought Tylenol, just one thing of Tylenol, and walked out, I'm still getting a long receipt. Like no matter what. We could be in Las Vegas next week. I could walk into the CVS and be like, man, I need some Tylenol. I'll get that Tylenol, and the receipt will still be this long.
Yeah.
Office Depot, you can walk in and buy a thing of pens, and the receipt's long, but it's not all the extra stuff. It just indicates that you bought pens.
I just think it's wild that people are like, yes, now let's get to 20. I want 22. It's like, why? Like, look how long that list is of just one. Like, the NFL has that. I know there's a lot of NFL wannabes. There's a lot of people that want college football to be the NFL because it's like a superiority thing, that because you're like a Big Ten fan that you feel like you won somehow, right? But the NFL is also divided up into divisions, that are grouped into fours. So they're even beyond that point of an AFC, or they're almost like they're over a conference at this point at 18 teams. And so, 2022, I mean, whatever floats your boat, I guess. But I just think that's kind of silly unless there's, something down the line that makes that make a lot more sense. But in the current landscape, even with the death of the pack, I mean, these 16, 18, and potentially higher conferences, I just think are just kind of just weird. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about them. I feel very strange about how big the leagues are getting and knowing that they could get even bigger. I don't know that I love that, but I guess we'll see. Maybe it'll be great. I'll love that USC is playing Michigan State, and that Texas Tech and Utah are playing or whatever. But I don't know. I think it remains to be seen the larger these grow.
Well, they are getting longer, and I think that might still end up being the case. I just don't know how you could decide a conference title, even with the fact, if there are two teams at the end of the year that are unbeaten and they play, I guess that's a conference champion. But if there are
But boy, we're going to have the arguments about, but they didn't play Penn State or Ohio State or Iowa or, and this team played Michigan and they played Ohio, and there's going to be a lot of that. Now, that's college football anyways, but it's the leagues, and we used to make fun of the SEC for the fact that A&M hadn't gone to Georgia yet, right? And it's been so many years. And was it specifically going to Georgia or just playing Georgia in general?
Going to Georgia.
Going to Georgia, okay. Yeah, just making sure there. But, that's going to be it's commonplace. I mean, there's going to be tons of those examples across the entire country now because of how many teams there are. So, it's going to be a very interesting year. I want
to give Jamie Pollard a little note here. We've had him on the AD at Iowa State. Out of 70 Power 5, which I know it's now 4, directors of athletics, there's a list out. Joe Castiglione is the longest tenured AD in 1998. Do you know how many of the 70 have changed positions since 2020? Out of 70. We talk about the coaches and stuff.
33.
30 or so?
Let's see, 30.
Oh, no, that was yesterday. That was all the different conferences.
34 of the 70 directors of athletics have changed since 2020. And I didn't see if there's anyone that's changed twice.
I misheard you. I was thinking of what you said yesterday about how many schools have moved.
Hey, don't. You said 33. You had it right. Don't.
I absolutely. That's what I thought about athletic directors and how many of them have moved. I was just one off.
You were close.
We could go down the list of them, but 34 of 70 of the Autonomy 5 conference schools. And by the way, Rick Hart from SMU is included, so the new schools coming in, he's like the 8th longest tenured AD among the Power 5 or the 70 schools in college athletics. Northwestern and Houston, of course, remain to be seen. All right, when we come back, Jeremy Branham, he's the voice of University of Houston basketball, but also the sideline reporter analyst for University of Houston football. How can Willie Fritz help Donovan Smith? What kind of a difference has he made so far? That is next. Jeremy Branham, this is 365 Sports. Pioneer Steel and Pipe, 1943, they opened up their doors. If you are building something, then you need to know where they are. And there's a couple of ways you can find them. First of all, pioneerboys.com online. But also on Loop 340, Highway 6 in Waco, just east of I-35. They moved into a just beautiful facility back in December of 2022. Opened the doors in 1943. Pipe, steel, metal. You need any of that product, they're the go-to. They haven't just sold that to people back in the 40s, 50s, or 60s. They've been selling that, and people have been going back generations of families. And on top of that, they have competed straight up with the big brand stores because of how they run their business. And now they have this big, beautiful facility. The distribution, when you go to pick up the product, whether it's a pickup truck, a hauler, or an 18-wheeler, they now have even better options for you to get it quicker. And it was always pretty good. Pioneer, Still, and Piper, a handshake still means something, but they also know that's part of it. They still have to have great product, and they do. PioneerBoys.com.
Make this the summer of Jeep at Allen Samuels in Waco. Get a 2024 Jeep Compass under $30,000 or save $13,000 on a Jeep Grand Cherokee Overland. Visit Allen Samuels in Waco today.
Come by. Let's be friends.
You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
Pleasant. It's different than any other dentist's office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texans are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
When your business depends on technology to stay on track, you need professional IT services you can trust. Carry On Solutions offers managed IT services, network professional consulting services, and cybersecurity. Carry On Solutions expert team handles M365 and Azure migrations, Active Directory assessments, security assessments and hardening, Exchange migrations, Windows Server upgrades, Veeam backup and recovery solutions, and more. In a world where technology is constantly evolving and security is an ever-ending concern, Carry On Solutions will keep your business running by minimizing risk, downtime, and giving you peace of mind. For more information, email sales@carryonsolutions.com or contact carryonsolutions.com. That's CARRION solutions.com.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoke, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoke.
University of Houston sideline analyst Jeremy Branham with us on 365 Sports. Media Days, of course, in the Big 12 coming up next week in Vegas, which means it's the new conference. It's been that week for a lot of different conferences. Jeremy celebrating either incoming or what. Your thoughts about the new Big 12 without Texas and Oklahoma and the incoming schools for the Pac-12?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm excited about the Corner 4, as they're calling it. I think that there's an opportunity long term for a school to step up and to be a dominant team or 2 dominant teams in the league. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun with the new addition, the new schools. And long term, yeah, I think there's going to be, a blue blood that steps up that we don't know who it might be yet.
Do you feel like that will be like in rotation? There might be a surge from 2 or 3 programs, 4 programs, because the Big 12 in the past, Baylor in 21, TCU made that great run in 22. Or do you feel like there will be 2 or 3 that set themselves to a higher standard?
I think it'll be both. I think you're going to have a combination of, a team or two, maybe even three, where they step up in any given year, and it's cyclical. And then I also think that you're going to get at least one school that steps up and is the dominant school. Utah's positioned pretty good right now. I think that Baylor long-term is another school that, the recruiting pipelines that they have. I think Houston could potentially do it. Obviously, I'm biased when it comes to Houston. But I think it'll be both. I think there's going to be one or two programs that kind of take over. They're the program in the Big Ten. I'm talking long-term. I'm talking 5, 7, 10 years. I'm not talking the immediate. I think we'll see that. I think we'll see a team program, maybe even two, that step up, kind of take over the league where they're always a contender. Maybe they don't win it every year, but they're always a contender. But then because of the depth of the league, and I think there's a lot of really quality programs too, I think you do see two teams a year that are, okay, this is our best year in the next 5. So we see that rotation of really dominant teams paired with teams who are having great seasons. And I think that's what's going to make the league fun, is that it's going to be unknown. Like you don't go into a year saying, okay, this is the team that's going to win every single year. So I think the parity is going to be good. I think it's going to be fun watching the long-term growth of these universities. I can't wait.
So what have you seen? What's the difference in what you've seen bringing in Willie Fritz, of course, with his great resume throughout his career, then most recently to Lane? What are the differences so far?
I think the passion and the energy. Fritz, whenever you bring him in and you see some of the national reaction, it's very positive. Anybody that spends some time with Fritz, it's, this guy's going to bring energy. He's going to bring passion. He's going to coach you. He's going to coach you hard. So it certainly has been positive for the program. People are getting excited for Willie Fritz, and the early recruiting. He's positioned the Houston recruiting to one of the best classes they've had since they've kept track of recruiting. So he's hitting the recruiting grounds hard, which excites the fan base. He's won everywhere he's been. I think the criticism for Fritz, whenever you look nationally to whenever he was hired or whenever he was in the coaching cycle, and it's his age. But you wouldn't guess that. I mean, you see him on the practice field, you see him around campus. You don't see him as much in the summer right now, but he's full of energy. He's got a lot of enthusiasm. So any fear of that has been alleviated within the fan base.
And I know I've seen that about his age, but when we've had him on our show, our interactions, I don't even think that way. I mean, you're right. He is absolutely like full throttle. I use that term probably too much, but very focused, locked in, and full throttle. So how much do you feel like he and the others around the offensive staff can help a very talented young man in Donovan Smith, but he also does tend to throw the ball to the wrong people too much?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that you kind of said it there. He's going to have to take better care of the football. There was times that he was very careless with the football. Whenever he came from Texas Tech, that was a knock on him. Houston saw that too. They played Donovan Smith whenever he was at Texas, and he gave him the ball a couple of times. He can be inaccurate at times. He can be careless with the ball at times, and I think it starts there. Hey, protect this thing. This thing is very important. We need this. We need the football. So I think it starts there. They're going to have to, improve in that area with him. I think he will be too. He didn't really participate a whole lot in spring practice coming off a shoulder surgery, but he did everything that he could. He was in there in the huddles. He was at the practices. He was getting used to the helmets with the new communication device, which is being implemented in college football. So I think it starts there, protecting the ball. I think if you look at what Fritz did at Tulane with Pratt, made him an NFL quarterback who wasn't highly recruited. He was kind of an underdog coming into college and turned into an NFL quarterback. So Fritz and his staff have the reputation to develop players. I wish they would have had Smith for his entire career, not just one. But I do expect a pretty big leap. And to your point, I think it starts with protecting the football.
It was Dana last year in the first year in the Big 12, which Houston had been wanting to do that, get back into an autonomy conference, and they had the opportunity. But he's now gone. Fritz takes over. What do you think Houston as a football program, even with the transition at head coach and staff, what did they learn that can help them the second year in the Big 12?
That's a good question. I think it starts with the recruiting, quite honestly. I think it's a step up. You look at last year's roster. There's some good players. I mean, you had Golden on last year's team who transferred to Texas. We just talked about Smith, who was at Texas Tech. They had some good football players, but I think it's the overall depth. The overall depth of having P4, I guess we're calling it now, players throughout the roster. Because, your starting 22 might be good enough, but all of a sudden it's football, so there's going to be injuries, and you have to plan for injury, because if you wouldn't, that would be foolish. So you have to have the depth throughout the roster. You can't just go 22 deep with a Big 12 roster. You have to be 50 deep. You have to be 60 deep. That way you're prepared for the injuries. And at the same time, you try to groom some of the younger players to turn into starters. I think it would start there and trying to build a deep roster. And then secondly, just each and every week, there aren't letdowns whenever you're playing football at that level. And not to talk down about the American, but maybe there were in those other leagues where, 2 to 3 weeks a year, here are tough games, and then the other ones, not that you're taking an opponent lightly, but it's not as difficult a game. I don't think you can do that in the Big 12, because even the lesser teams in the league have really good football players. Even the lesser teams in the league are capable of beating you any given Saturday. So there's no layups in the league in building a deeper roster, I believe.
Donovan Smith's name gets brought up because he's the trigger man. Manjack, among some others. Is there a player or two that you kind of think are overlooked that you feel like maybe deserve a little bit more attention?
I think the receiving core is going to be good, even with the loss of Matthew Golden, who transferred to Texas.
Mm-hmm.
I still think that the depth at the receiver position is going to be very good. I don't think they're going to take a step back. Samuel Brown transferred too, but I like what they have there. The name I would specifically mention is Parker Jenkins. Came into the mix a little bit last year, got hurt a little bit, dinged up a little bit. But when he had opportunity, he was very good. And the previous staff was bullish on Parker Jenkins. This staff, bullish on Parker Jenkins. Parker's actually doing a visit at the White House. They're having some initiative right now. So he's up there at a great student, great ambassador for the university, and I think he's going to take off. Showed incredible flashes last year as a freshman. I think he's bound to have a terrific season and a terrific career. He'd be the name that I would mention there. He's a name to look for.
Okay, Jeremy Branham again, sideline analyst for the University of Houston football radio broadcast. They have Oklahoma in week 2. There's been a history with OU, and so that UNLV to start with, but then at Oklahoma, your thoughts about that test in week 2?
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. Dana Holgerson's first game was actually against Oklahoma, so it's ironic that they're on the schedule again for Willie Fritz's second game going to Norman. It's going to feel like Big 12 football, right?
Yeah.
Oklahoma leaves the league, and you're playing Oklahoma in the second week. I'm looking forward to that trip. My wife's from Norman, actually, so that'll be fun selfishly for me, going up there to visit some of her family and going up there. But it'll be a challenge. It'll be a test. How much, what's the bar in year one of Willie Fritz? That's for each individual person to answer. I think that you need to give him a runway. I think you need to give him opportunity 2, 3, 4 years to really build this team up. Oklahoma is one of the finer programs in the entire country. It'll give us the feel of where they're at in Fritz's first year. I remember Tulane went into Norman a few years ago when Fritz was there. And I think it was a last possession game. I think it was even the Hurricane year when Tulane didn't really have a good season because they were displaced because of the hurricane, and they still went in there and almost beat them in the first game of the year. So, Fritz has a little history there. Houston certainly has the history. Last game was not the best for Houston. But, of course, everybody remembers the NRG game and beating Baker Mayfield and having the kick 6 return, Brandon Wilson, 109 yards on the missed field goal. So, yeah, it'll be fun. That's a big-time college atmosphere. I'm really looking forward to it.
I asked you earlier about the Big 12 and how all this, almost like a pot of gumbo with the 4 schools that have entered and then the 4 previously, including Houston, Cincinnati, UCF, and BYU. Do you feel like without Texas and Oklahoma, and obviously they have the logos and the brand, and they'll also, a lot of times tell you about that. Do you feel like it's a breath of fresh air?
I guess the political answer would be, oh, no, they're all right. No big deal. But, if you were to ask the fan bases, especially of the Texas schools, that have had to experience it, I don't think Arizona State, Utah, Colorado, BYU, maybe even UCF and West Virginia and Cincinnati, I don't think that they have the real grasp of what it was like to be. And maybe Houston doesn't either. Houston hasn't
they're
been
gone,
for But I mean, they of course they did back in the old Southwest Conference days. There was all the Bleachergate deal and the politics of the Southwest Conference. But if you're a Texas school, I think you really feel the weight that those programs carried on the league, and probably specifically Texas, if we're being honest. So, you know, the Baylors of the world, the Texas Techs of the world, TCU, Houston maybe to a lesser degree, Oklahoma State, they get it, they know. So I do think that they take a step up in weight class, because if Texas and Oklahoma were the heavyweights of the league and they're now gone, well, now it's an opportunity for those schools and every school in the league to step into that heavyweight category. So, yeah, I think it's I don't know if I want to say it's a breath of fresh air, because I could see somebody grabbing this headline and blasting it on Twitter. But, yeah, I think there is a sense of that. There's a sense of, okay, the heavyweights are gone, whether it was just because of their size, maybe not always their production. And it's, okay, let's replace that. Let's be that heavyweight. Let's be that top team in the Big 12. Let's be that team that every single year the media and fans are expecting us to win the league and be part of the college football playoffs. So, yeah, I do think there's a sense of it for sure.
There was the change with Chris Pesman out as AD as Houston moves forward with what they have in front of them. How much did that shake up the athletic department a little bit? Was that, you know, you hear about, well, maybe that was coming, but what was that like that day when that story popped out?
No, it was a surprise for me. I mean, I kind of keep my nose out of people's business. I don't really get involved with the whole political stuff and all of that stuff. But no, everybody was pretty caught off guard by it. I think it was unexpected for a majority of people. I do keep a pulse on the fan base. And, yeah, there was surprise there. You know, the radio guys, we were surprised. And I think Kelvin Sampson had the best answer for it. He's like, we need a Lewis and Clark. This is a new voyage in college athletics, whether it's NIL, whether it's conference realignment. In football, you have the college football playoff. You have the transfer portal, which is basically glorified free agency in college athletics. Mm-hmm. So it's a new day. And Sampson said that, you know, we need a Lewis and Clark. We need somebody who thinks outside the box. We need somebody who's looking into that next voyage in college athletics. So I think they're going to try to be cutting edge with it. Find somebody who does have a vision of the way that the landscape of college athletics is shaping up. A few people that I've talked to, you know, like Yormark type, which I think Yormark does have that vision. I do think he's somebody who has the mindset of, you know, adapting to the college landscape and where it's going. So, yeah, I think that would be a good way to go. You know, Tillman Fertitta, Renu Couture, the leaders of the university, I trust that they'll make a good decision to guide the athletic department for the University of Houston.
Jeremy Branham, sideline analyst, reporter for University of Houston football with me. David Smoke, 365 Sports.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Our good friend Brad Boozer, Boozer's Jewelers here at 365 Sports. Now, Brad, people who watch and listen to our show know I'm a double-time customer for you, engagement ring and wedding band, and you guys do that great, but that's not all you do at Boozer's Jewelers.
Absolutely, and I always like to say, you know, it's a new year. It's a great way to start the year out. Go through your old jewelry. Go through your wife's jewelry box. Go through anything you're maybe not wearing, something that's broken, something that you're not using. We do a massive amount of custom work. We can take your old jewelry, old diamonds, old watches, and we can convert it into something special for you and make a one-of-a-kind piece of jewelry. And if that's not something you're interested in, a great thing is we can turn that into cash. So we buy gold, we buy diamonds, we'll buy Rolex watches, any kind of heirloom jewelry, anything that's maybe passed down to you.
Boozer's Jewelers, where do they find you, Brad?
We're at 1025 North Valley Mills Drive, right on the corner of Lake Air Drive and Valley Mills with the big clock on the corner.
Pioneer Steel and Pipe opened their doors in 1943, and they have never wavered with their focus on great product and customer service, relationships with a handshake, making sure you, the customer, is satisfied. Their new facility is now twice the size, allowing new inventory, higher quantities, and in a much more organized fashion. In addition to the long lengths in tubing, angles, channels, rods, and flat, Pioneer Steel and Pipe now offers several shorter, more convenient lengths of material already cut. Their 2,500 square foot showroom has over 1,000 new products in stock, new welding supplies, hardware, quickcrete, and do-it-yourself components for any project, whether you are a professional contractor or weekend warrior. The new facility is designed to make your loading experience faster and more efficient with easy drive lanes around the building and much more room to get your trailer loaded. Our location may have changed, but our values haven't, and our relationship with customers goes much farther than just business. Pioneer Steel and Pipe on Loop 340 and Highway 6 and just east of I-35 in Waco.
This is Craig Smoke's Off the Radar, presented by Alliance Bank. They take pride in making banking easy. AllianceBankTexas.com.
Welcome into Off the Radar here on 365 Sports. Segments on Tuesdays and Thursdays at around 4:45, where we take a look at just a grab bag of headlines and stories and whatever else. A scuttlebutt from the past few days. And there are plenty of headlines, man, for early July. I mean, I don't want to jinx it or anything, but I feel like we've been pretty blessed just 2 days into the month as far as a lot of news goes, especially college football. But there's plenty of other things going on as well. I did want to make mention of one college football note to start off with, and then I'll get to some other sports, but we did not mention this yesterday. How about the fact that the Mountain West and Warner Brothers Discovery came to a deal where we're going to see Mountain West games on TNT, a multi-year agreement. Mountain West college football will air on True TV and Max, which is formerly known as HBO.
Which I think they're going to change back to HBO.
I'm in agreement with that.
Yeah.
HBO's got some weight behind it. HBO growing up, like, that meant something.
Yeah.
And I know that I'm not the desired age bracket probably at this point, but Max is just, I don't know what that is. Like, I think of Max Olsen. Yeah. I don't think of Game of Thrones or whatever on there. You know what I mean? So, if they go back to HBO, I'd be all for that. But, if they do, if they don't, either way, whatever channel that's called, you will see some Mountain West football starting this season. It was announced yesterday. First time, according to Sports Media Watch, that the Turner Sports Networks will have aired regular season college football since TBS had Big 12 and Pac-12 games back in the mid-2000s. So it's been almost a couple decades since they've had regular season college football. 14 games will be on the schedule. Now, here's the deal, is how many viewers they get will be interesting because these aren't the sexiest matchups. Sacramento State and San Jose State on August the 29th. They'll have doubleheaders on numerous weekends as well. But good for the Mountain West to get some more exposure. I guess good for Turner to add some more to their arsenal. And obviously they are playing a game right now with NBA rights where they very likely are going to not have anything based on where we are right now. Although I guess there's some thought that maybe still somehow they'll put together some type of package, but they're looking for other stuff, obviously, over at Turner Sports. So the Mountain West is one of the early beneficiaries of that. So just another place to watch more college football.
Yeah, and that there's a reason, unfortunately. This is not being unfair, but there's a reason they're in the Mountain West. And the fact that they're on TV at all, for those fans, they get a chance to watch them. Otherwise, they wouldn't.
Rather than being scattered across ESPN all the time,
No, I think it's great. I also think it's good, like, long-term. I know that True TV is about to change from what it is to, I think they're going to do, it's going to be like Turner Sports.
I'm confused as to what it is. I used to watch it when it was Court TV, and it was very clear what it was, and then all of a sudden, like, Impractical Jokers was on there all the time, and I didn't really know what channel I was watching.
Yeah, so that's going to change off of what it is, and I think they're going to put this stuff, like Impractical Jokers is going to go on TBS, which is a bigger station anyway, with more of that, and they'll turn True TV into their sports hub, which then can feed to Max as well. I think that's how it's going to be, and I don't think they're going to get any NBA package. I mean, just based on Charles Barkley's retirement announcement alone, I think that kind of indicates that, they're not going to get any NBA now, and they're not going to push as hard.
Yeah.
It's painful for all of us.
Somebody print out for me. You know what I love about YouTube TV if it's relevant and it's live and it's among the better things that are on at that moment, you go to live and it takes you to 6 or 8 different, whether it's baseball games or I've kind of enjoyed that. It almost filters all that stuff out. But I am so confused now on what networks are owned by whom, et cetera, like conference realignment.
Yeah, I mean, there's some of that to it. There's a Game of Thrones being played, and a lot of companies gobbling up other companies or merging with other companies. It's hard to keep track of, and that in itself, like you get into the weeds with realignment stuff or into the weeds with, I don't know, whatever your hobby may be. And there are definitely like the Bob Thompsons of the world and those guys, Patrick Crakes, that they'll get into that like you're talking about free agency in the NFL or something.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, WB did this and did that, and they have a way to spin it and make it interesting. But the Mountain West has other broadcasters, but this will help air a lot of their other games. CBS Sports, Fox Sports, and they are interestingly not going to have any of the Oregon State and Washington State Mountain West matchups. So that was not what they were able to.
Committed,
those are previously committed, and so they will not have any Oregon State, Washington State, even though they will be playing mostly Mountain West schools throughout the season. But yeah, it's just one of those moves by WB Discovery to add some sports to what is now a thinning profile based on the NBA stuff. So good for the Mountain West, and I don't know what kind of ratings they'll pull in, but if they're egregiously bad or if they're terrifically good, we will talk about them. If they're in the middle, I don't know how much we'll talk about them.
Let me tell you, there'll be better ratings than a rerun of Adam Ruins Everything at 7 o'clock. They just will.
I don't even know what that show is.
It's actually a really good show. It's a dude, he's a comedian. He goes through like historical misnomers and things like that and goes through it. I don't think it's on anymore, but like it'll do better than, I guess Bar Rescue's not on True TV, but it'll do better than a show like that's been rerun 1,000 times.
Don't mess with
I'm
Bar
not messing with Bar
Rescue.
Rescue, but the problem is that at that time on Saturdays, what's True TV airing? They're airing a marathon of Impractical Jokers, right?
Yeah, or on the other Turner stations, like a Big Bang Theory marathon or something like that. But yeah, anyway, so that was just a broadcast note. So more Mountain West on regular cable TV. That's the point of the story, and that's good for that conference and just for college football fans who aren't the nose in the air. All right, Texas A&M announced their new baseball coach earlier today. Michael Early is the new head man in charge of the Aggies after, you might have heard, a big to-do with their former coach and how all of that ended. That's a story that continues. By the way, nice PR efforts by Texas over the weekend when it came to the reporting around Jim Schlossnagle and kind of how all that went.
You mean that?
No, I don't even want to get into it, but it was very clear there was some PR going on.
Brian Davis was busy.
Yeah, there was some PR going on, but regardless, everybody's moving on, and Texas A&M has now officially introduced their hitting coach, Michael Early, and he's already got a number of pledges that are going to be returning to the fold. I don't have an ongoing list because I felt every time I looked there was another name that's like, he's coming back for the Aggies.
Well, there were 12 guys, I think, 9 or 12, and they got Jace Lavalette and they got Grahalik and a few others. There's still a few more they need to go
They
capture.
got a big transfer from Texas.
Let me say it. This is what I'm going for. So Michael Early gets introduced, and they've had, like I said, a list of guys that are coming back, and I wasn't keeping up with that. But they did have one notable transfer, and that was Gavin Cash from Texas Tech, who has now committed to Texas A&M, a really nice player for the Red Raiders that had entered the transfer portal a few weeks ago and has now officially pledged to Texas A&M. So that is, from all indications, a pretty massive get for Michael early on in his Aggie tenure.
Yeah, he's done a nice job. They now need to kind of help bolster 2025 for those who did not keep their commitment. But here's the thing. I wish him the best. They have a heck of a team, a core coming back, especially since a lot of them are coming back out of the portal. But one thing you got to do, that's the popular pick. That's what the players wanted. Now, he still needs to be the one that runs that program. And the early adrenaline rush will that last, not just for the next 12 months, but into the future. He seems to be a guy that a lot of people like. Good for him. I'm happy for him.
Yeah, I'm happy for him. And I know that, like, I've seen a lot of people go, well, this could be like the Rodney Terry thing at Texas or Mark Adams. I know there's a basketball example at Texas Tech where you hire the assistant. But I do think to keep this core together, it was really important to get Michael Early, who was very well respected. And Trev Alberts did the right thing. He went and called and talked to Tony Vitello, and he talked to all the big names, Brian O'Connor. Kendall Rogers reported that they made a big offer to Tony Vitello, and he said, well, no, nothing's going to change for me. I mean, just the city I'm in, that Tennessee's already made me that same kind of offer, and I'd rather not move. So, yeah, I think that, he did the right thing, and then he went and said, okay, what's the best chance for us to be back in Omaha? It's Michael Early right now.
And I wonder, while he was talking to Vitello and all the others, getting a read on what they thought about Michael Early once they told him they were out. That would not be a bad idea either.
So Cash is a .314 hitter, made 119 starts, 120 appearances for Texas Tech the past couple years, 41 homers, 135 RBI, one of the top players that was in the portal. So, yeah, that's a big get, including the names like Laviolette and also Grahovic that are coming back as well. So, yeah, we'll see how it goes. But I think given where you were, you're about as good of a position as you could have hoped for, considering, about 3 days ago where this whole thing was, or certainly when we left the air on Friday. This was in a not great place. So there you go with that. Gavin Cash, I'm sure Texas Tech fans not thrilled by that. They weren't thrilled when he entered the portal to begin with, much less when he's now entering his name into the Texas A&M record books this season.
Do you know, I think he was at Texas, then went to Tech, and now he's at A&M. So he's done the triangle.
Made the whole tour. Yeah, I didn't realize he had started at Texas. I don't follow college baseball closely enough to remember that. But it sure has been a sequence of events that'll make you pay closer attention. I'll tell you that. For all the messiness of it, it does make it far more interesting, doesn't it? And that's why you can kind of understand why the messy stories always get the headlines, because that's what attracts people to pay closer attention. Meanwhile, Texas Tech, speaking of them, introduced some new uniforms yesterday. Looked pretty good, and they are now outfitted in Adidas, obviously. I went to the good old source of, there's various websites that cover uniforms, but UniWatch, we usually dig down into the details, especially if there's like historical nods, like when West Virginia did their coal miner uniforms. There was some really interesting stuff about how they had put that together. Now, a lot of that's from the school, the press release and all of that. I don't think there was anything like too detail interesting as far as Texas Tech's uniforms. I think they were kind of like they are what you got and they're good, and there was that to them.
It doesn't have to be jazzy. They
don't have to have a nod to the 100 years ago or anything like that.
I like them.
Right. So they were that's all I'm saying is they didn't really have anything beyond, hey, these are the new uniforms and here's how they were made and here's the Patrick Mahomes influence and all of that. But there is some other uniform news from the Big 12 is what I'm getting at here. And that's BYU, who announced that they are going to wear their throwback jerseys from 1996 as part of their 100th season of college football celebration. They'll wear the uniforms when they play Kansas State to open Big 12 play on Saturday, September 21st at Lavelle Edwards. And there's a white helmet, white jersey, white pants. The 96 season was because they won the WAC championship over Wyoming, also played in the Cotton Bowl and beat K-State. So there's the Kansas State tie-in. And so they will wear them against K-State as well. But what's also interesting is the picture that you've seen probably going around from the 1996 jersey. Do you all know who the quarterback of that very good and now being honored all these years later, conference champions, Cotton Bowl team, BYU. Do you all know who the quarterback of that team was?
And what year was this?
In 1996.
Yeah, the other guys I'm thinking about are
was it Steve Sarkisian?
Steve Sarkisian was the quarterback at BYU. And there's a lot of pictures of him floating around from then to say, here's where we were wearing, and this is what we're going to wear again against Kansas State. So that's just a little alternate uniform news for the BYU Cougars.
Here's why I'm proud and sad that information lives in my head, the list of BYU quarterbacks. We had Ty Detmer on the show 4 years ago when we started, and we've had him on 5 or 6 times since then. But the day we had Ty Detmer on, obviously it was COVID. The first time it was COVID. I had nothing else to do but read about BYU quarterbacks for 2 hours before we started. There wasn't anything going on. So I read the list, and it just lives in my head now. And I'm worried that there's important information in there, like my mom's social security number that I might need if something ever happens, that's been pushed out by the fact that in 1996, not just that he was a BYU quarterback, which that's information enough, but that in 1996, that was the year he was. It's pushed that valuable information gone.
Yeah. Their history of quarterbacks, including now, hell of a football coach in Steve Sarkisian.
Yeah, so it's just cool to see him, and that's not that long ago. I mean, I know it is. Yeah. I guess that's just signs I'm getting old. Is like, that's only 30 years ago, but so they'll wear those 96 ones against Kansas State when you see them debut a different look to start Big 12 play. Also notable from that is with all the uniform reveals, you've had Iowa State, Iowa State, West Virginia, Baylor, Texas Tech, BYU with an alternate. I'm sure there's other alternates that I haven't kept track of, but the BYU throwbacks in the picture, another one, and one set had it and the others haven't. No Big 12 logo. And that's just fueling the, okay, is there a new logo on the horizon that your marks kind of referenced? Is there going to be an all-state Big 12 patch on these uniforms that they don't have ready to debut just yet? So that's just something that people I've noticed have picked up on is the no Big 12 patch. And so maybe we're in store for a different look on the jerseys this year, and that's why they're not on there just yet. Or maybe they just haven't put them on there. I don't know, but that's just something to, I guess, keep in mind. All right, elsewhere, been a lot going on in the game of basketball here over the last couple of days. Klay Thompson is a Dallas Maverick. Never thought I would say that. Never really had that in mind whatsoever, but he is going to be joining Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic after the Mavs arranged a trade involving the Warriors to break up the Splash Brothers. And so Klay Thompson now headed to join the Mavericks as they also lose some guys in free agency. But just that's weird. I mean, I don't know how involved you guys got with the Warriors and their run and how much you paid attention or cared about it. I mean, a lot of people did to the point where the Warriors are one of the most valuable franchises in all of sports these days. And if you had said that like 20 years ago, people would have been, well, they wouldn't have been in that conversation. You wouldn't have said that. But because of all their success, they've just rocketed up. The new arena in San Francisco, all that helps as well. But yeah, Klay Thompson to the Dallas Mavericks, one of the big moves going on. So thoughts on the end of the Splash Brothers era and him joining up with Kyrie and Luka Doncic?
I don't... I mean, I'm not sad about it. I mean, as a person,
maybe y'all don't care because you're not Mavs fans, but I find it just to be.
I'm sure you're thrilled.
I mean,
yeah.
You know what I like about it? It's someone. He's 25 or 30% of who he was, but he has great experience. He can help, and he picked playing with Dallas when he could have gone to the Lakers.
Yeah.
Like that's where his father wanted him to go, and he decided to pick Dallas to maybe be able to play with Luka. And I think that, Mavericks have lost out on a lot of these guys. Now, this isn't Klay from 8 to 10 years ago or 5 years ago, but that's a nice little piece to the puzzle.
He's still pretty good and a nice three-point shooter and can help with their spacing and help him get back in deep into the playoffs again. I love the signing. I really wish, like if I could, I used to say I wanted to be a tennis pro in Scottsdale. I've changed my mind on that. If I could come back, I would come back as a guy who's the 12th guy on an NBA bench.
Yeah, never play and make $10 million.
Yeah, probably 3 to 8 million, 10 million, depending on how old you are.
Yeah, I mean, like they have these escalators. You see these guys get, hey, we need this guy to be the 8th guy, and we're going to give him a 2-year, $24 million deal to average 5.7 points a game. Hell, I'm in for that.
Yeah, no, there are some bench players that are making lots of money. Clay's obviously not that. He's an important piece to a three-headed monster, hopefully, if you're Dallas. I mean, they're upgrading. The moves they've made, the moves that have occurred, I like it. It's sort of like pinch myself and just, really, is this where we are now? But yeah, the end of the Splash Brothers, and now Klay Thompson is a Dallas Maverick. Chris Paul's a San Antonio Spur. I mean, he's obviously on the last legs of his career as well, but he's still floating around out there. There's been a ton of moves, but one definitely worth mentioning was just the massive contract from a couple of days ago. Jason Tatum, fresh off of an NBA championship, 5 years, $314 million Supermax contract extension that will have him tied down with Boston from now until 2029, 2030. Officially the largest deal in NBA history. He is 26 years old. He was in the final years of a 5-year, $163 million extension, but he will make $51.4 million next season. And in his final year, $71.4 million. The final year of his contract. 70 guys, are y'all listening to this? $71 million in one single season. That's where we are now.
I don't know if I sent that to you, Garrett, about the salary cap in the NBA like 30 years ago was less per team than what Jason Tatum's going to make in 1 year.
He's going to average $62.8 million annually on this contract. That's just crazy. That's just absolutely insane. Meanwhile, Boston announces they're for sale after winning an NBA championship. So I don't know. They usually don't update these until like August when it comes to the most valuable franchises on Forbes. Now, before the NBA title just last year, the Celtics were like the 43rd, I guess, most valuable franchise in the world. I would imagine after another title and after, re-signing Jason Tatum and just some of the things that come with that, it'll be very interesting to see what the price tag is for the Boston Celtics as they now go on to the sale block. But yeah, a lot of interesting NBA free agency news going on as well. And I'll close it out with this. John Gruden, we haven't talked about him in a very long time, but just some closure on this. He lost a bid from the Nevada Supreme Court to reconsider whether or not a contract interference and conspiracy lawsuit he filed against the NFL should be heard in court or in private arbitration. They did not respond to messages, but Gruden can seek a hearing before all the Supreme Court justices. But basically, that was something that came down where if you had forgotten about that entirely, I don't blame you. But it doesn't look like his lawsuit's really going anywhere, and I don't know how much promise it really had to begin with. But you talk about a fall from grace of where he was like probably the most popular face of the NFL there for a couple-year period, from an announcer to Gruden quarterback camp and all of that to just not being involved at all and now trying to sue the league, but it doesn't look like his efforts are going very far.
Yeah, I know like a lot of people felt that, and look, it was wrong how that all went down. Everybody was trying to, pin things on Dan Snyder, and John Gruden was the first one who went down for that. But the bottom line is, when it came out, whether it did or not, the fact that it did made it impossible for him to ever regain full credibility in a locker room again.
Yeah.
Because he can try to explain, like, no, this was me and my friend. You don't have the context to it. Like, we were just kind of kidding around. Yeah, but you don't know that. That's what you're saying to try to keep your $8 million a year job. If I'm going to play for you and I'm going to, do all these things for you, I have to know that you don't hate me in some kind of weird way.
He's basically he's just gone.
Yeah. He's just basically gone at this point. He's trying to exhaust all legal efforts, but I mean, he's done. And that was just, I felt like that was it's probably already final anyways, but that was just some more finality to it. So I thought I'd throw that in there, but there's quite a few things off the radar.
Craig, thank you very much. Coming up next, the voice of Texas Tech football, Brian Jensen, Hall of Famer John McClain today, a little bit after 5:30, plus Paul's Top 5. Thank you for what you do by watching or viewing us. And we don't mention this enough, the Sikkim 365 app, or we are on Twitter Live, too, now at 365 Sports YT. This is 365 Sports.
Don Humidor and Coffee Beans in the Town West Shopping Center in between Richland Drive and Valley Mills in Waco. Home of a 48-foot walk-in humidor. Padron, Cohiba, Aston, Macanudo, Romeo and Julieta. You name it, they have it. The best elite, high-level, world-ranked cigars inside their 48-foot walk-in humidor. My favorite brand is Rocky Patel. They have many different Rocky Patel cigars for you. And Vita Dreams, a CBD product that helps you fall asleep a lot easier and more restful at night. So you got a lot on your mind. Financial, health, emotional. Just a really busy week and you're tossing and turning a lot. Vita Dreams will help you find a way to just when you're ready to go to bed 30 minutes or so, hour before, take a Vita Dream, a gummy or two, and you'll be just fine. Think about when the alarm goes off and you go, man, I just wish I had another 30 minutes. Well, you'll get that extra 30 minutes. Try Vita Dreams. THC product for very chronic, serious pain. And then also fresh coffee beans. Don Humidor and Coffee Beans in the Town West Shopping Center. New owner is Josh. Cheyenne is still there. In between Richland Drive and and Valley Mills in Waco.
Make this the summer of Dodge at Allen Samuels in Waco. Drive away in a 2023 Dodge Charger or Challenger RT with $13,000 off MSRP, or the powerful Charger GT and save $10,000. Get a stunning 495 horsepower Scat Pack for an amazing $9,000 off MSRP. Plus, enjoy 90 days to make your first payment. That's 90 days with no payments. Hurry into Allen Samuels in Waco.
Come by. Let's be friends.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow @GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student-athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments with financial advisor Brad Wilson. Investing is time and experience back to you and your money during today's changing times. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now, here's David Smoke, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoke.
All right, here we go, this 5 o'clock hour. Brian Jensen, voice of Texas Tech football, joins us on 365 Sports. Craig Smoke, Paul Catalina. I'm David Smoke. Brian, thank you very much for your time. We'll start with this. They had the big unveiling of Adidas and the uniforms and the imaging and all of that. It seems like, and we had Giovanetti on the show, Robert Giovanetti on the show on Monday, but it seemed like that could not have gone over better.
Oh, it was fantastic. Thanks for having me, Smoke. It was fantastic. The relationship with Patrick Mahomes has been fantastic. And it's been anticipated for quite a while, ever since the conversation started between them. And then obviously when the word got out, leaked out, and then they confirmed it, everybody's been waiting to see what that change would look like. And now they're just excited to see, how it evolves over time, because as you well know, it's never exactly what they start with as they go on throughout season. So it's just going to be fun to watch.
Brian, how much do you think the last couple of years would have been different had Tech been able to keep a quarterback healthy for double-digit games?
I think it would have been dramatically different. And the reason, a couple of different reasons. The obvious, which is if you have a starting quarterback that can stay in there throughout a season, you've got the consistency that you would expect. You've got plays that were designed and worked on throughout the fall that quarterback is fast at. And you would get good rapport with some of your starters and that quarterback. Then when you change to another one, obviously you've got a guy that's only been practicing a little bit, at least if it happens, a couple of games into a season. You've got different plays and different types of strengths for that quarterback that you've got to adjust to. The players that are receiving from the football or, playing with him, listening to his commands, it's all different. And then one of the things that was disappointing for Tech the last couple of years, they had what they considered three solid quarterbacks, and they really wanted to play all three at one time. And it would have been really interesting to see what Zach Kittley had come up with to be able to do that. Now, it's possible with the quarterback room they've got going into this season, if they stay healthy, we might finally see it.
And that guy right now is Baron Morton, Brian, who we got to see a good bit of last year. I mean, still learning, still developing. But what did you like about his game, and where do you feel like he stands to or needs to make some of the biggest improvements?
Well, what I really like about his game is his athleticism and just his ability to put the ball where you want to put the ball. He doesn't have the kinds of throws typically that are so far out of range that you go, what in the world was he thinking? He's the kind of guy that if he misses by just that much, right? So I really like that. The thing last year was he obviously struggled with some injury in his shoulder. That's been well documented. So to get him back healthy, ready to go, able to put the ball downfield, we've seen some shots of him in the offseason that give you just, great hope that it's going to be dynamic and dynamite if, again, he can stay healthy. The thing that he needs to improve on is, it's that decision. It's that ultimate, hey, my arm is strong. I can get it in there, so I'm going to put it in there like a Patrick Mahomes would. And all these guys these days, you see it, they think they can do that because they see it on television and they see it on their PS5s and such, and they can't. They're just not that level of a quarterback. Well, he's got the strength and the skills to do it. It's just making that decision of, okay, maybe this time I should hold on to it and either get rid of it or take it a few yards on my own.
We were talking about this a couple of days ago. How massive of a lottery ticket was Patrick Mahomes coming to Texas Tech when you wrap your head around it all? And there's still more to come, right? I mean, God willing, there's still more and more to come. But, I mean, can you even begin to explain the impact of Patrick Mahomes and Texas Tech football?
It's so huge. It's hard to explain because there are so many levels and so many elements to it. This Adidas thing is just the next step, but it would not have happened if it was the kind of player that typically leaves a university and gets really big in the NFL. They typically forget about the university or they move on to their own things. They may drop a dime here or two, for the school, but they don't do what he's done. He has been at everything, supporting everything. Every time you see him out somewhere, he's got something on that's got a double T on it or, something that represents Texas Tech. And he's obviously come back. This Adidas thing was as much his idea as it was anybody else. In fact, I think it was a majority his idea.
So, he's the gift that keeps on giving, and there's still hopefully, as Craig mentioned, God willing, many more years for him to give and for us to watch what he does in the NFL. Brian, Joey McGuire came in, obviously left Baylor in 21 midway through the year, took over in 22, 23. They ended the year. They finished strong in 22. They, at times, almost teased people. Is this the year that they need to do more than tease people?
I would expect that they're going to take another step up. But is this the year that they need to? I would say in the next couple of years, yes. Is it this year? With all the changes and everything that have happened in the Big 12, with NIL, with everything else that's going on, some coach is going to step up in the middle of this thing and just take a huge jump. I think it could be Joey McGuire, and I think it could be Tech, but I'm a homer, okay? So you kind of would expect me to say that. The exciting thing is when you look at some of the rankings that have been thrown around, and I'm not talking about, where they're going to rank this year playing. I'm talking about the off-season rankings and what they've been doing in the off-season. McGuire and his staff have done a tremendous job getting portal transfers, getting, recruits, getting people that they want to be their next superstars on the field. Now, how quick does that happen? That's always the, $64 billion question in today's game. But I do think it's possible that they could make a major step as soon as this year.
Brian Jensen.
I'll tell you one other thing. Look at the schedule. Now I know that it came out today that they're picked ninth or something in the Big 12, but I don't know if the people that voted really looked at the schedule, because if the teams that finish or are projected to finish ahead of them are those teams, Tech doesn't play but like two of them. So the fact that they have and most of they have 8 games at home. So you start thinking about all the great things that they could do through that schedule. It could be a magical year.
4 of them, but like some of them are just like right ahead, Brian. But also, I think the difference between 6 and 9 in the league is probably not going to be a difference. I think there's going to be probably 4 teams that have 8-4 or 7-5 records altogether.
Yeah, but you look at the 3 out of the 4 that they've picked anyway.
Yeah,
Utah, Kansas State, Kansas. Tech doesn't play any of those 3.
No.
So if in fact they're the ones that separate from the league, well, hopefully you see them in the Big 12 championship game, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Brian, I like asking everybody from we've talked to people from around the league leading up to this season, and just what is your viewpoint? I mean, as somebody who's seen the Big 12 evolve in many different ways over the years, the history of Texas Tech, various conferences, various rivals, all that, it's just it's a new world that we're in. What do you make of the new Big 12, and kind of what are your expectations?
Well, I love it, actually. And the reason that I love it, and again, I'm talking from Texas Tech's perspective, and I think if you talk to John Morris at Baylor, he'd have the same conversation, and that is, it's an opportunity. Right now is an opportunity for a team like Tech to take a step up without the schools that have always been the ones that separated themselves, or at least they told you they separated themselves in some cases, that would separate themselves in the conference, and that you always had to butt heads with. Well, now you have an opportunity to go, okay, is Utah really going to be that team? I don't know. Is Kansas State going to be that team? I don't know. Right now you go, I don't know. Well, that's a great opportunity for someone in the conference to step up for the next few years and go, okay, from now on, y'all are going to be chasing us. So I love that. That's number one. And the other thing is, I love the opportunity now to see other places, go and see other traditions, see other teams. Last year it was fantastic going to BYU and seeing what that was all about. Hadn't been there before. So just that experience from a selfish perspective, I think is really cool. And I think players like that too, quite honestly.
Yeah. Is there, it's a breath of fresh air to me. The new we had Tim Healy on, who, Arizona State broadcaster. And we also had Jeremy Branham, who's at Houston. And every one of them seemed like, by not throwing shade to anybody leaving, we know who left, but it's kind of a breath of fresh air. And it's going to be kind of like, who's going to climb to the top, and can any of them sustain it if they get there?
And that's the thing that to me screams opportunity, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you take a hold of that opportunity, well, what does that mean for you down the road when this thing starts getting all shuffled again? Because this is not the end of it. So what happens to the teams that are the ones that don't take the opportunity and they fall back a little bit? Now they are looked upon as a lesser team in a quote unquote lesser conference. Well, that's why you have the opportunity to be one of those that's not one of those teams, but instead becomes one that now the other big guys go, hey, maybe we pick this team off. Maybe we pick this one. We didn't think about them before because they were in the middle of a conference. Now they're one of the conference leaders in a, new wave conference. So I think it's a great opportunity.
Brian, how much do you think the offensive line will be improved this year?
I think that's going to be well, in fact, I know it is. Talking to Zach Kitley, it's really the question mark that they have coming in, only because there are so many new pieces to it. You've got Caleb Rogers who's coming back, and he's going to, kind of anchor the line. They're probably going to move some linemen that they might have had outside before inside, because you've got Taj Brooks, one of the top running backs, career yardage wise in the NCAA, coming back for his final season, expecting to have, 1,000-yard rushing season. You're going to see the ball in the middle of the field probably more than you've seen from a Tech team in, oh my gosh, let me count the years, 1999 maybe. And if that's the case, then that offensive line is going to have to grow up in a hurry. And I think Zach Kitley believes that he's got the guys to do it. It's just a matter of, as you've been around sports long enough to know, sometimes you get a guy that steps onto the field as a young player, and he gets it and starts to just develop his own way. Then you've got guys that you expect to do that, and they don't. And then you're always trying to find the one that is going to in that position. if it's a key position on the offensive line, it's going to be difficult. But if it's not, then I think Tech's offensive line could quickly mold into one that could be very successful for them, especially the way that they are expecting to run the offense this year.
What about defensively, Brian? I mean, that's been a question at times. You tack it through the portal, you tack it through recruiting, you develop over time. Just sort of where do you feel like they are on that side of the ball? Because so much talk about Tech always is on offense, but I know that there's a defensive backbone there as well.
Yeah, and I love Tim DeRuyter, the defensive coordinator. He's also what you'd call a breath of fresh air when you're around him. And the guy is brilliant when it comes to football. And talking and listening to him in this offseason about what he thinks he's got there. The defensive line, some guys that had been there for a long, long time are now gone. They were stalwarts in the middle of the line, with Tony Bradford back there or up there and Jalen Hutchings. But what that does is it gives the opportunity again to some of these young guys that have been waiting in the wings to show what they can do. Now, he believes he has depth in that area. Linebacking core is going to be really good with one of the young players, Ben Roberts, in there. But here's the key. Tech secondary, according to Zach Kitley, the offensive coordinator, is the best secondary he's gone against anywhere. Now, he said that to me, and I said, okay, wait, what? He goes, I'm not kidding you. We have more speed, size, and physicality than a secondary that I've ever played against. And I'm like, whoa, this ought to be fun to watch. So we'll see if that's the truth. And if that's the case, then this team could, again, surprise some people, which is what we're all hoping for.
Brian, thank you. I saw a drone shot of the stadium with still some work to be done, and how that has morphed into what they're doing there at Jones AT&T Stadium. That's just another part of when is that going to be ready for the opening game?
Yes.
Okay.
That is, yes. And also, I think Giovanetti mentioned this when you talked to him. They've also attached the stadium with the walkway across to the rest of the facilities that are not quite finished yet, and those may not be quite ready. But it's the largest singular football complex in the country when they're finished. So it's really going to be impressive.
There we go. Hey, Brian, thank you very much. We will see you soon. Voice of Texas Tech football in Brian Jensen with us. I've known Brian for a long time, back in the days when he was on TV in Dallas. Tim Healy was on TV in Dallas. And so thanks to Brian Jensen for that and being a part of the show.
Yeah, they're an intriguing team because you can make a good case for them schedule-wise, just some of the guys they have coming back. If you're a believer in Joey McGuire, that they could be up in that top tier. They're right in the middle, I think, based on the preseason voting, and there certainly are still some questions, but I still feel like they're riding a wave of positive momentum. Now, I do think you're kind of at the point in year 3 where, they've made bowl games back-to-back years, but I guess there's probably some Tech fans that want to, compete and actually, be in the championship game, which is understandable. So, yeah, I do think they're kind of entering that territory of, hey, bowl game's great, but now how do we add a little bit to that, And especially in the new Big 12, that's just another one of those schools with the financial backing, being in Texas, things like that, where I think you feel like you should be one of those teams that's contending for the top of the conference on a yearly basis now. And maybe some of the blockades are out of the way, or the timing's just right to where you're ready to be in that mix. And if not now, when, right? Based on the alignment and the backing and just sort of where we are. So, yeah, that stadium looks really cool. Don't know when I'll ever get a chance to maybe get out there, but it does look pretty awesome based on the pictures that we've seen. I think that'll be really cool to see some games emanating from there.
Go to Texas Tech Athletics or whatever the Twitter feed might be about the drone. It's unbelievable. A couple of things. He was talking about the schedule of who Tech will or not play. I saw this from Brian Peterson. He covers Arizona. Think about this one. Arizona only has one Big 12 conference game against a team picked to finish in the top 6 in the league. Now, that's a media poll. That doesn't mean it's sold. One road trip at preseason champion Utah. Kansas State is non-conference. And then the remaining games are against 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 13, 15, and 16 based on the media poll.
Yeah, and that's true. Tech is a kind of a similar thing. The teams picked ahead of them on their schedule are Arizona, Iowa State, Oklahoma State, and West Virginia, and Iowa State and West Virginia aren't picked far enough ahead of them to me to make that claim. So really, the two would be Oklahoma State and Arizona. They're in the top 5. And because we know so little about this conference and how close it's going to be, I would also, though, maybe push back on, the schedule sets up easy. Does it? Do we know?
We don't know.
We don't know.
Yeah, what if Colorado turns out to be actually really good? And then that just throws everything for a loop, or Baylor or TCU or whoever. I mean, pick a team. I think Arizona fans are probably the fan base giving the most pushback on where they're being pegged in the preseason rankings, because they have so much coming back, and they have arguably the best quarterback. They have arguably the best wide receiver, arguably one of the best defensive backs, and so on. So they lost some. They didn't lose everything by any stretch. But I also think they're just I feel like we changed the head coach, but still well, no. That matters. And if it doesn't matter, then great. Then Brent Brennan's the perfect hire, and you don't skip a beat, and you guys come sailing in. But I'm just not necessarily just going to bank on that. And I think Arizona fans that are kind of pushing back, in some cases, not all of them, are treating the head coaching change as though it's not really a big deal because you have all these players coming back, when I think it's a little bit of A and B. Yeah. And so luckily you got your main core players back for the most part, but it wasn't just your head coach. It was others on staff as well. So if they're able to overcome that, then shoot, Arizona might be onto a little bit of a run here. But, that remains to be seen. That's how I knocked them anyways. It certainly wasn't for their personnel. It was more for what you lost on defense. You lost your head coach. You're moving conferences. That's just a lot of change. So we'll see, but they are definitely one of those teams that feels like they should be getting a little bit more respect, I think.
Hall of Famer John McClain is next, but one note about VJ Edgecombe, who's committed to play, signed to play at Baylor, made the Bohemian national team.
Oh, he's not only made it, he's kicking ass.
Yeah, he's good. He's really good. I've been watching the stats as they've come down. Okay, we're not done. John McClain, Hall of Fame columnist, Paul's Top 5. This is 365 Sports.
Looking to connect with Baylor alums in your area? Baylor alumni can help. Looking to host a watch party in your city? Baylor alumni can get you started. Want to step out in your community and serve with other alums? Baylor alumni is your connection with the university and each other. Let's get started. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
Thank you for calling your local Marco's Pizza. We're turning up the heat with our new Reaper Cheesy Bread. Fresh, house-made dough is topped with a spicy cheese blend infused with jalapeno, habanero, and Carolina Reaper peppers. At only $5.99, this limited-time product is a hot deal. Add it to your order while you can. A Marco's team member will be with you shortly.
Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it, and that offer on the Reaper Cheesy Bread is available right now at any of the 5 Marco's Pizza locations in Waco, including Belmead, China Spring, Robinson, Woodway, and Hewitt. Order online at marcos.com. Call for a pickup or delivery. Marco's Pizza is turning up the heat with their all-new Reaper Cheesy Bread with fresh, hot, house-made dough topped with a spicy cheese blend infused with jalapeno, habanero, and Carolina Reaper peppers, and only $5.99 and for a limited time only. Marco's Pizza, the fastest-growing pizza brand in America, 5 locations in Waco, and the new Reaper Cheesy Bread. Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Did you know that 1 out of every 4 men have symptomatic low levels of testosterone and don't even know it? And if you think you're too young to worry about it, guess again. Low T levels can make you feel tired and grumpy, raise your cholesterol, and cause weight gain. Petty Clinic Low T can set up same-day blood screening and results. So if you're tired of being tired, call or go online at pettycliniclowt.com. It's a private clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Affordable, only $165 a month, including lab work, office consultation, testosterone injections, and follow-up visits, compared card to $300 or more a month in Dallas or Austin, and you don't have to drive 90 miles one way or the other and fight the traffic. Petty Clinic Low T has board-certified physician consultations and will provide the best form of brand-strength testosterone. Contact Petty Clinic Low T for increased energy, improvement in sexual desire and performance, mood, concentration, even a decrease in body and belly fat. Just off Highway 84 and Old Hewitt Drive in Woodway, PettyClinicLowT.com.
This is 365 Sports.
The Sikkim 365 app is brought to you by Allen Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat. Come by, let's be friends.
We're now joined by Hall of Famer John McClain with us on 365 Sports. John, I'm not sure if you saw this note, but they will celebrate the miracle on the Brazos. 74 Baylor beat Texas. They will do that in September prior to the week of playing Air Force at home. And I know you have many memories of those particular years, too.
I was a junior at Baylor, and Dave Campbell did the lead story, as he always did. I was assigned to Texas dressing room. Lester Zed, one of my closest friends, was assigned the Baylor dressing room. And after the game, at halftime, I went to the back of the press box, and so many fans were leaving. And I went over to Dave Campbell, and I said, Mr. Campbell, you know the worst thing about being a sports writer? He said, what's that, young man? I said, you can't leave when you know your team's beaten. And he said, you already know they're beaten? I said, yes, sir, they are. He said, well, stranger things have happened. And I looked at Lester behind Dave's back, kind of did my finger on my temple like he's nuts, and stranger things have happened. My dad told me after the 63, 7-3 loss in Austin, the Don Troll interception by Duke Carlisle in the end zone. 3 things in life you're going to have to get used to if you're going to cheer for Baylor: death, Texas, and Texas. And I remembered that. So I remember Grant Jeff coming up to the press box. It was cold, it was foggy, and the scoreboard was shrouded in fog at that point. Abner McCall and Herbert Reynolds were planning to spend the night in their suite, and cars started going around the stadium. And I went home, and my dad, Curtis McLean, was listening to Frank Fallon talk about it on the radio, and I was tired, and I was still happy. He said, "Do you think?" And he was on TV live. They were showing the fans going around the stadium. He said, "Do you think we can go out and take a trip around the stadium?" And I'm like, "Okay, sure." So he packed up my brother and my mother and my dad, and we go out there. And by then, I think everybody in Waco was out there. So I get in line. We putz along. I finally circle the stadium once. Can we do it once more? Yes, sir, we can do it once more. And until I heard him snoring, I finally got out and went home. And to me, that is the greatest victory in Baylor history, to beat the Longhorns for the first time in 20 years, win Southwest Conference for the first time in 50 years. I talked to Darrell Royal about it. I've talked to Earl Campbell about it. It was Earl, a freshman, who had a roughing the punter call and ignited the comeback, and I'll never forget it.
John, it is that time of the NFL summer where it slows to a crawl a little bit, and I know that you appreciate that. I'm curious on your opinion on like the things that become national, like social media stories, like Brandon Ayuk and Jalen Daniels having a FaceTime, or a wide receiver taking the team's all the team photos and the team mentioned off his Instagram. Is there a comparison to a different time in the NFL for that, or is this a new, very annoying thing?
Players have always been unhappy about their contracts. Usually they go to newspapers and talk to the beat guys, or maybe a TV guy. And talk shows weren't that big back when I was in Waco and when I came to the Houston Chronicle in 1976. But because there's no social media, they didn't get near enough attention. And I'll tell you what I'm focused on today, besides the United States men's soccer team being pathetic, is Baylor's VJ Edgecombe, looking incredible, as helping Bahamas beat Finland, and then getting that wide receiver away from LSU and Houston and Texas and A&M. That is a great day for Baylor football recruiting, and of course a great day for Baylor. Seems like every day is a great day for Baylor basketball. I'm on a text thread with a bunch of my friends who I grew up with, who are all Baylor grads, and I send them things like there was a list, and one thing I saw about teams that sold out every seat, and Baylor was one of them. The Longhorns were not. The University of Houston was not. Texas Tech was not. Now, of course, their buildings are bigger, but that's beside the point. And so I'm getting fired up for all football season, college and the NFL. And the thing that I miss most, and I do a weekly video with Jim McInville, Mattress Mac down here about Houston sports, and we put it out on the social media platforms. And Jim was on a UT national championship team, I think, in like 71. And I told him the worst thing about the Longhorns going to the SEC is the pleasure that the Bears, the Cougars, the Red Raiders, all the other teams get when you beat Texas in a sport, especially football, and in Baylor's case, basketball as well. And we're no longer going to have the exhilaration that we feel when you beat the hell out of Texas. To you.
So we know that the transition's official. What were your thoughts about, first of all, the Houston Chronicle with Brett Sertiman and now Kirk Bowles, and the drama of Jim Schlossnagle, A&M to Texas. A&M today announced and also introduced their head coach. I never thought we would have that much baseball talk on this show because we do a lot of college sports, but football mainly. But it was unbelievable last week, and even up until today.
Every show I do, including the ones in Las Vegas, Knoxville, and Nashville, and the others in Texas, we were all talking about the Longhorns and Aggies. And I had fun tweeting about it, ripping Schlossnagle on the Longhorns. One of my tweets got over 1 million views, and I'm thinking I need to do this more often. And I didn't have a problem with him going, but to try to make us believe it hadn't been done for a long time, that they did it on Monday at a cemetery, give me a bleeping break. They're just flat out liars. And they got the hitting coach because they knew they could get back their top guys who've gone to the portal. And then they get a top guy from Texas Tech. So Aggies are going to be fine. Longhorns are going to be fine. And but I've never seen anything like it in college baseball. I told somebody, I said, we're talking about college baseball. Give me a break. I'm saying the same thing. We're talking about the WNBA. I watched Caitlin Clark and Brittany Griner and Christy Wallace play. I think it was Sunday. I watched every bit of that game. So I'm watching soccer, the WNBA, and college baseball more than ever.
John, thank you very much. Look forward to seeing what goes on. We're about to head to media days in Vegas next Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So it is football season, not that far around the corner. Look forward to it.
Yeah, I feel so sorry for you guys. Terrible.
Yeah,
having to go on your vacation to Las Vegas.
Yeah.
My condolences.
We're working. It's not a vacation. We're working. We try to convince everybody of that. Yeah.
I'll just say that we only have to work, though, until about 4 p.m. when the show's over, which is 2 hours earlier than it is here.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, you better be careful, Paul. The bosses start checking those expense accounts more carefully.
we are 1099.
Yes. Thank you, John. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, guys.
Hall of Famer John McClain with us on 365 Sports every Tuesday in the 5 o'clock hour.
Yeah, I look forward to when we can get into more NFL like games and stuff like that. But only a couple months. Well, actually, just couple weeks away from training camp, right? Or are we a month away from that at this point? Yeah, end of the month. End of the month. So we're like a month away from training camps getting started up. Still good stuff as always with John. And always enjoy hearing from him, but definitely starting to get that itch. I don't know about y'all. Like, still have like a little bit of time where I enjoy the calm in the breathing room, but in terms of talking, like, I'm excited to talk about all these new conferences playing each other in the actual games and awards and things like that. So we're not that far away. I did feel like there's one thing to mention before we go to Paul's top 5, and that was a Blake Anderson update.
I saw that. Go ahead. Yeah.
That he is not going to go down without a fight, apparently. Blake Anderson out at Utah State, and so are some others in administration there at Utah State. But he has had his attorney has come out and said that, I lost it now. You had it a second ago.
He said it's going to be an uphill battle.
It's going to be an uphill battle
for Utah State to prove that they should terminate Blake Anderson. Who's his client? That's his job to represent him.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it just sounds like there's going to be some...
Tom Mars is the name of the attorney.
Yeah, we've heard his name plenty of times,
Yeah.
Tom Mars, over the years. So, yeah, it sounds like there's going to be some more follow-up. I don't know how public all of that will be, but that was just a response that came out in the last few minutes, so I thought that was worth updating because we don't know what the heck's going on. And the indication he made was that now that I'm remembering it, why should Blake Anderson be punished for the failings of others whose job it was to handle whatever the misdeeds were? So I guess that's the angle that they're coming from, that it wasn't Blake Anderson's job. That sounds very familiar as well in some ways, but yeah, that'll play out further, it looks like.
I got one update. Today, when Michael Early was introduced as the coach at A&M, which you mentioned, Trev Alberts, who last week, over the weekend, when that PR campaign surged out of Austin with the Fort Worth Star-Telegram Q&A with Schlossnagle, Alberts was asked about that because it said basically that Alberts in that article, or what Schlossnagle said, was that, hey, if you don't like it here,
leave.
You feel like you need it. Alberts said today to the Houston Chronicle, we talked at length. I said, are you frustrated? Is there anything I can do? At the end of the conversation, I said, Jim, if you're not happy here and you want to leave, that's okay, but please don't hurt our program and don't hurt our kids. And he said, I will never do that, Trev. And I said, okay. Now,
well, Tim Schlossnagle can't be believed at this point. No. I mean, I know that if you're a fan of UT that you feel differently, and that's fine because he's your coach, so of course you're going to feel that way. But I think for everybody else from TCU to Texas A&M, there's plenty of people that, they don't trust a word that comes out of his mouth at this point. So, each to each their own, but I know that I'm in the camp of he's made his decision. I said last week multiple times, like, hey, it's your life, pal. Like, do what you got to do. But I do think there's some PR stuff going on right now to try to save face for Schlossnagle, and I don't buy a second of it.
There's a right way and a wrong way to do things. And he spent 48 hours doing the wrong thing, and then they spent time trying to be like, no. And
Trev Alberts is at fault because he pushed him out the door, and it's like, I don't think that's how it happened,
Yeah, I mean, a lot of this stuff goes back before Trev Alberts even got there. Right.
You start to look back and you like the male cheerleaders comment and just some of the things along the way. You're like, there were little breadcrombeds being dropped here and there about how he sort of felt in general about A&M.
He's in Texas. Early's at A&M. End of story.
Exactly. I think the thing I don't like the most about it is, yes, I know there are plenty of idiots in the world, but don't treat us all like we're idiots. So when it comes to you and they say, look, he is your best friend, you guys have had to talk about this, be like, you know what? Yes. But we were just in the College World Series final. I think you can see that I was able to separate it professionally because he had that, that's a claim he had. He said, I can do both.
Well, they weren't far away from winning it in games 2 and also the comeback in game 3. We have an issue here in the studio.
Well, let's take the break and then you can
Coming
get some
up
oxygen.
Next, you hope there's not a lot of time left when we get back. Paul Catalina and his top 5.
It's time for Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Ahoy! That is hello and check. Especially to our brothers and sisters just north of us and west that have given us such wonderful things as sausage and kolaches and klobasnikis. All wonderful. Today's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House, is Top 5 Historic Moments Retconned by Realignment. Now, if you're not a movie or comic book person, you may not know the term retconned. What it means is that they take an origin story or something and they they repurpose it and point it to a different direction. Maybe a villain is different or has a different upbringing, or they change the gender. You've probably seen that online. They retcon things, and that's how retconning happens. Now that realignment has happened, I've seen all over social media how the conferences are adopting these moments that did not have them into their own history. Like, who can forget this wonderful ACC moment? Cal versus Stanford at number 5. Great things that happened along the Atlantic coast. In the Atlantic Coast Conference, this is now going to be on the ACC network because of realignment, that the band was out on the field, and all Clemson and Georgia Tech and UNC fans thought about this and how significant it was to their conference when this thing happened, because now it's an ACC classic. And you'll see this probably replayed many times on the ACC network. In spite of the fact that it did not happen in the Pac-12, it didn't even happen in the Pac-10. It happened in the Pac-8. As a matter of fact, there are only 8 schools in the Pac when this classic moment happened. Oh, and who can forget also just the hits of Barry Switzer, SEC coaching legend. I saw Barry yesterday celebrating the Oklahoma's interest into the SEC. And then, I saw some SEC, type, media things being like, oh, what a great history to include in the SEC. Well, you can't really include it in the SEC because it didn't happen there. But Barry Switzer won a bunch of titles. Not in the Big 12, in the Big 8, mind you. So we're even leapfrogging conference histories and adding them in. Also, one of my personal favorites, 2004 USC, the greatest Big 10 team of all time. Garrett, you remember this. You were alive in 2004.
I was, man.
And what Big 10 memories we had from there. Oh, all the Indiana and Purdue and Wisconsin fans were upset about the buzzsaw that was USC. There's Reggie Bush, now a Big 10 legend. Maybe the Big 10 actually will let Reggie Bush, free. I know he's kind of been let free, but, forget about the past a little bit more. Number 2. The greatest basketball coach that ever lived, John Wooden, also now a Big 10 basketball legend. Here are pictures of him with, Lou Alcindor, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He's Lou Alcindor in this picture. He's Kareem in this one. And I didn't move it down because I thought it was just too funny to have Kareem's head cut off in there, just to show you how much taller he is than John Wooden, who by most would be considered kind of a tall guy. But John Wooden, the greatest coach, maybe the greatest coach in the history of coaches, John Wooden. Now, all that's in the Big 10. And, he beat a lot of Big 10 teams, I'm sure, on the way.
Big 10 boy, Purdue.
Oh, he went to Purdue. So, yes, he was already a Big 10 legend. I'm sorry, Jack. I'm sorry. So now all that, it comes full circle. And, of course, what list would be complete without Vince Young, 4th and 5, legendary SEC moment. Look at that. All the SEC people in the stands loving that for the SEC. Wow, what a moment. It's right up there with other SEC hits like Tim Tebow or Alabama. Bear Bryant, right there. There we go. So I know that this is where things have to be housed. I just don't like that we're kind of homogenizing our college football history and not realizing the great things that were before, even though they're falling apart. When we don't learn or remember our history, we're doomed to repeat it, and we're doomed to maybe even make it worse. And by pretending that these things didn't exist or not acknowledging that they existed in the state that they did exist in, it's just sad for college football and for me personally. So when you see these things promoting the new teams, just remember they didn't happen in those leagues. As a matter of fact, outside of Johnny Manziel, every great thing that Texas A&M did happened in the first 2 years of the Big 12 or in the Southwest Conference. Those are things that we just kind of have to deal with, but in this new world. But don't forget about all these legendary moments. I felt like that was a bit of a Time Life, record thing, like the hits of the 50s. That's what this is. We're back to wrap it up right after this.
All right, Paul, thank you very much on that. Yeah, the great moment in SEC history with Texas and USC in that shootout to win it all in the Rose Bowl.
As a person who watches the ACC Network regularly, I can't wait for like I said, number 5, the Cal-Stanford retrospective.
I saw that the other day. It was such I can't stop watching that.
Here's what's funny about that. That'll be on the ACC network. But anybody that was an ACC fan in 1984, 3, whenever that happened, 81, in the early 80s, the only reason they ever thought about Cal and Stanford was because on their local news that night, they're like, wacky thing happened in this game, and they showed it.
Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
John Elway. Lots of pretty good players that have come out of those two schools. All right, thank you very much, Paul Catalina. Thank you, Garrett Ross, Jack McKenzie, also Emery Winters, working on 365 Sports Tonight that airs tonight and every weeknight at 10:30 on the CW. Our great sponsors. Thanks to our guest. Also, for those of you who watch and listen to us in various ways on 365 Sports. Back at it again tomorrow. We'll have David Murphy, former Baylor and Rangers outfielder, play with a lot of teams on the Major League Baseball All-Star Game coming to Texas in a couple of weeks. For Paul Catalina and for Craig Smoke, I'm David Smoke. Thank you so much again for your time. This is 365 Sports, and good night.